Fallout 4 is a game that boasts tons of items to collect, and in order to grab the many weapons, magazines, bobbleheads, and even companions, this will take you throughout the Commonwealth on your journey to cement the sole survivor as the savior of post-apocalyptic Boston. But what if you wanted to do and see everything the game had to offer? Well, in that case, you could just look at the achievement list of the game and use that as an outline. Well, what if that wasn't enough? Well, to that I'd say you should use the endgame statistics tracker along with the achievement list. That would surely fulfill your quest, right? But this is still child's play. Let's push this even further. We're aiming for a true 100% run. I'm talking all quests, all achievements, all in-game stats, all unique apparel, all unique weapons, all companions, all companion perks, all magazines, all bobbleheads, all perfectly preserved pies, all settlements, all locations discovered, all holotapes, all notes, all super mutant armor, and every character level. Driving home the insanity behind this massive collectathon, I also didn't use any mods to level the playing field. What I do here should be able to be replicated on console without the fear of turning your Xbox or PlayStation into an IED. I also banned the use of exploits and glitches, meaning this entire run is about as vanilla as you can get. Meaning we may run into some issues. To state the obvious before heading in, this can't all be done on one playthrough, meaning this will be spread across 4 separate playthroughs but on one account, as there's more than one quest requiring multiple outcomes to gain every reward. So our first run will be done in survival, with the other 3 being done on very easy. This video will also only cover the base game since I severely underestimated the amount of time this would take. My original goal was 66 hours. How long do you think this would take? Without further stalling, let's dive in and see just how much the Commonwealth has to offer for those willing to pursue it. With all characters venturing out into the Commonwealth, choosing a face to invoke fear in the hearts of their adversaries is crucial to survival. This should do just fine. And now with the Vault Tech rep arriving, it was time to set my stats. A 6 in strength to carry all of the loot I could get my grubby little hands on, using perception as a dump stat because who needs to be aware of your surroundings when the potential of a one-shot kill is lurking around. Endurance at 9 to prevent over-leveling when I grab the namesake bobblehead. Charisma at 5 for the ability to talk my way out of fights and to earn some extra caps along the way. Intelligence at a 1 to capitalize on Idiot Savant for faster leveling. Agility at 2 to help with some extra action points, and 4 in intelligence, which would allow for the Your Special book to boost it to 5, and begin the most annoying sound effect in the game to kick off every chance it gets. With my fate sealed and awaiting the end of the world, I watched as my husband carried our son with such finesse, it made my character lose any future hair she would eventually grow. Now that the bombs had dropped and I was getting accustomed to my coffin-styled apartment, I watched as a man with dashing good looks came into our new vault and punished Nate for his terrible baby carrying, before passing it off to his assistants, because he can't be giving away all his secrets now, can he? But put all of that to the side, we're free now and we've got a long list to do. Racing through the vault and grabbing everything not bolted down, I made some rad roaches dance in a hallway before being released back to the surface. And before we get too much further, are you ready to watch the earliest mess up of the run? See if you can spot it. Racing past the useless Mr. Handy that couldn't even keep my house clean during an atomic detonation, I visited the cellar to retrieve some gold bars before heading inside my abode to grab a Groknak comic and the Your Special book to bump my luck up to 5. Last thing left to do was to grab the grenade stashed in a mailbox leading out of town, pick up a stray dog who would help me terrorize some mole rats guarding a fusion core, leap atop some buildings for early power armor as well as a minigun with almost 1,300 rounds, and then booking it to Diamond City to meet with my favorite chem junkie trader. Just remember to share your great mentats with her as she'll toss you a discount when checking out her wares. Meaning spray and pray and all the 45 ammo Cricket is carrying is coming with me. Now armed with my own personal weapon of mass destruction and a random dog I found, I headed back to Concord to break the Minutemen out of their impromptu prison. Yeah, that can't be good. Welcome to survival mode, ladies and gentlemen! Seeing how I was thrown a bone here to fix my previous goofs, I would have been smart to capitalize, but that same mistake in Sanctuary was repeated while I ran off to meet with Cricket once again, this time skipping the power armor and minigun. Why, you may ask? Not only will it help with clearing out the Deathclaw and Raiders, but if I'm being honest with you, I forgot. Who would have guessed trying to balance all of this in one smooth motion would cause your brain to miss optimal plays? Like trying to talk down Wolfgang even knowing I had a coin flip to actually pass. But even with that being said, I was able to purchase our early weapon of choice, saved this time, and without time being crucial anymore, we helped out the Brotherhood of Steel to open up their questline for the future. Once again back in Concord, the Raiders had practically left town. Even Preston had gotten bored and headed inside. This just meant that I was able to blitz through any foes inside the Museum of Freedom, then grab the magazine upstairs as well as the Perception bobblehead, before talking to Preston and the gang about helping them out. Thankfully, that minigun power armor combo that I passed up earlier was all that was needed here, which not only freed Preston's group, but also allowed me to scour the civic access in the town for another magazine. However, even with Concord officially sorted, this did not net me the outcome that I had come to expect. With the Minutemen back in Sanctuary, I was planning on grabbing Preston as my companion and running him through the Commonwealth to grab all the settlements along the way. But it turns out, he doesn't actually become a companion until after you deal with Ten Pines Bluff, meaning Codsworth becomes our first companion that we'll need to grind affinity for since we're in the area. With the goal being to completely clear out areas of any importance to avoid backtracking, Codsworth and I first ran to Satellite Array Olivia. Inside there is the locket needed later for the Abernathy Farm quest, but also a magazine and fusion core if you're hunting those, which we will be. Plus Ak-Ak, of course, who poses no threat against the Raider Stomper. I won't be covering every single one of the pickups we grab unless they do multiple things for the run, but I never said anything about showing the footage.
Extra. Just had to push, didn't you?
Let me ask you a question. When faced with a member of the elderly who had to trek 20 miles back and forth on their way to school in the rain, snow, and atomic annihilation, do you think you'd be able to take them on when faced with the ultimate game of Think Fast? Nope! Didn't think so! But Think Fast only catches you off guard once. And when the shit that used to work just don't work now, you literally just hold the trigger down and pray, as you bounce around to show off your ability to still possess working joints. Oh look! A free magazine! With a foothold secured, my next goal was heading towards Salem to smash out every location along the way, but considering the right side of the map was a bit of a higher level than what I currently was, the multiple one-shots deterred any game exploration into the area. So instead, what about heading over to Corvega? Not only does it have multiple locations along the way with some goodies, but it still falls into early game, meaning it'll just be fighting raiders. On the way over, I stopped by the aftermath of a pilot telling his passengers he's gonna do a sick flip, ran through a cemetery that will no doubt not be big enough to house all of the deaths heading my way, raced through a few minor areas that really only count because they are locations with only a few housing anything of importance, and then made it to Walden Pond to grab Big Jim. Codsworth up until this point had been the literal worst. He only cared about me upgrading armor and weapons or wanted me to be nice to everyone. And quests weren't on the menu quite yet, which means not only was this companion not doing much in the way of damage, but because of this character model, he made for the perfect hallway blocker. And to add even more spice to the list, if he went down at all, this meant I was running all the way back to Sanctuary to pick him up again due to the lack of robot repair kits. Fuck you, Codsworth, I'm glad we're getting your perk done first. With Walden Pond sorted, we arrived at the Lonely Chapel, which led to the federal ration stockpile. Inside here was a magazine along with Red Tourette. This also housed an entry into a raider camp and a legendary raider, but for some reason, this area was crafted meticulously by Todd to shave years off of my life, as I spent far too long just trying to reach the end on what felt like an ever-moving finish line. At least Corvega was easier than that hellhole. This never-ending rifle is gonna help out tons moving forward. But whereas I was tearing through these guys with little to no issue, grabbing the magazine in Jared's quarters was the only thing on my mind. And you may be thinking, well, yeah, that makes sense, that's one of your metrics. And yes, you'd be correct, but so is the bobblehead at the top of Corvega. You know, the one I didn't grab while I was here. Lucas, I need to drown my woes in your store for a bit, and I'm positive not buying every legendary piece you have won't come back to bite me later. And while I'm here, I might as well take the test to get into Covenant before turning in the quest back at 10 Pines and then sprucing up Sanctuary for a bit of easy XP. On our next session, I decided to head back to Corvega for the bobblehead, but since we were in the area, knocking out the super duper Martin Lexington made for a good pit stop. Just keep in mind when you visit this place at night, the locals are more than keen to toss you a light. Thankfully, Mystic Pines is just outside of town and offers a place to lay your head along with the magazine to boot. With a save close by, I headed back into town to sort out the fat man wielding raider, only for him to do something I've never seen before. With the outside secure, I headed into the Super Duper Mart to make a last call for any remaining shoppers before sweeping the store and dealing with any customer complaints as the acting manager on duty. This netted me holotapes, a magazine, and then more holotapes downstairs for a job well done. And the job well done carried over to Corvega as our newly scoped rifle completely tore through the raiders here and allowed us to grab the bobblehead. But I couldn't say the same about the College Square Station magazine that lived behind a locked door. I'll sadly have to come back to this. Since we're in Cambridge though, I decided to take up Danse on a trip to Arcjet. Not only were there holotapes and a magazine there, but this would also open up his questline and a few legendary weapons. Only there's little to report in the way of excitement here, so instead, here's what we collected! With righteous authority gained for letting Danse hard carry while I collected completion pieces, I headed back to Sanctuary to drop off some gear. However, as you might be aware, Fallout 4 without mods is rather interesting in its execution. Okay, we're still at 170, which means now I need to find some way to make a box. Alright, beautiful. I'll just put it on the roof. No one will ever know. NPC cannot use elevator. Well, they can't get up here either because I won't let them. I'll put some kind of crazy stuff. The settlers are able to teleport on the roof. Well, they better not, or I'm gonna do something about it. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do something about it. So what are you saying? Like build a little shack on top of a shack? Yeah. See, look, they gotta do parkour. See, parkour. How the fuck did you get up here already? So now heading back to Cambridge once again, this time I grabbed a quest off of each Brotherhood member here to boost some affinity with Codsworth, and then kicked in the door to the Fraternal Post to deal with Deadeye and his goons along with the raiders hanging out just under the bridge leading to Diamond City. All before arriving at the Green Jewel of the Commonwealth to begin another bout of collections. Like the Fen Street sewers, there were not only 4 holotapes here but a magazine as well, and all I had to do was deal with a horde of ghouls with Codsworth doing his best to stay out of my way. Might as well smash out Hardware Town too for an easy magazine there. If I can handle a horde of ghouls, raiders are nothing. You piece of shit, get the fuck out of the way! Well, that was harder than I thought! To cool down after that hour of dying, I went and secured Hangman's Alley and retrieved a magazine as well as some goodies from Back Alley Apparel for Halen back in Cambridge. I also visited another raider hideout, that was the Mass Pike Tunnel. And before you ask, there is a magazine here that needed claimed, only issue is, the raiders and ghouls here were more than happy to send me away empty-handed. So close, yet so far! This feels like the motto of this run. Since I'd have to come back for this later, I stopped by a police precinct to grab a holotape, grabbed some locations for us to swing back to later, and then decided to smash out the triggermen. We can grab some holotapes, a magazine, a bobblehead, and free Nick all at the same time. This seems like the perfect place to go now. Well, fuck! With Nick freed and finally completing the first affinity conversation with Codsworth, I went forward to Hubris Comics to grab the Silver Shroud gear amongst other things. Oh, for fuck's sake! After some quick sightseeing in the Boston Commons, I visited Good Neighbor to grab a few quick magazines before picking up some quests and then assaulting Mass Bay Fusion. Besides the gunner inhabitants vying to melt me alive with their laser weapons, there was a bobblehead just asking to be picked up. We visited some close locations to cross them off, all before venturing into Hallucinogen Inc. to recover a gas tank for Fred in Good Neighbor. And while we did get lost more than a few times, unlocking terminals and securing the magazine went a long way to crossing this location off forever. Except for the unique weapon that I'll have to come back and grab eventually. Unlike Fennel Hall on the other hand, fighting super mutants is one of those things that you need to either have a build made for actually killing things, or be good at the game, both of which I did not possess, meaning the magazine at the back of this spot would just have to wait until I was able to keep my head on my shoulders. Being a good neighbor, this left me with a few potential quests while I was in the area, but because Codsworth hates fun and dealing with most of the denizens of Good Neighbor, I decided to head back to College Square and clear the ghouls out to appease Reese. But if I'm being honest, this was mainly to get the magazine that had eluded me prior. See what I mean? The man hates anything that could be seen as useful! I'm so glad I'm getting his companion perk first. With the Brotherhood of Steel pleased for now, it was time to venture off in search of adventure, making sure to grab minor locations along the way. Only issue is, because I was heading up towards Finch Farm to smash out the huge completion quest that is Out of the Fire, this is where I messed up. I stopped off at the Watts Consumer Electronics to grab a Total Hack magazine, and unfortunately, since I was over level 15, this kicked off the Automatron entry quest. And since I shot to defend myself from the Servomechs instead of running, this now turned most of my random encounters going forward into Rust Devils and Death Machines. Well, at least I could get robot repair kits more easily now. Leaving Ada behind to tackle this DLC at a later point, but grabbing the goggles that spawn here, I headed up to the Taffington Boathouse. Not only will it serve as a settlement, but having more beds throughout the Commonwealth also means that hopefully I shouldn't lose heaps of progress in the inevitable death thrown my way. And trust me, considering that I was now moving into the West Everett's estate, a super mutant stronghold, deaths would be inevitable. Well, at least we get a save point nearby. With a fallback point secured now, I just needed to head up the road and grab a magazine at the Poseidon Turbine Station. Except, I had grossly underestimated my lack of gear. 5 was a magazine. Oh shit. Codsworth, I need you to clutch this up. We died to bloatflies? It is legendary. I'm running from a bloatfly? There is no universe in which I should ever be afraid of bloatflies. Not only that, but with the magazine secured, now I had to deal with a pack of Mirelurk hunters keen to remove my legs. Too bad they'll never get to taste my character's unwashed ass on behalf that I left Codsworth the body block for me. About time he got to be useful. I'll just pick it back up from Hangman's Alley and keep on trucking. Now downtown, I did some sightseeing, before stopping off at the Cabot House and sweet-talking my way inside to pick up the special delivery quest. This questline is arguably one of the most important for this run. It holds a bobblehead, magazines, unique weapons, apparel, and multiple quests, so starting it now is a no-brainer. So long as the quest doesn't break along the way, we'll be fine. Heading back outside and stopping off at the Haymarket Hall, I cleared the area before heading to Bunker Hill, grabbing a magazine, and then kicking in the door to an abandoned ghoul's house. Luckily, there was a laundromat nearby to wash away all the juices that now adorn my gear. Ha! Who am I kidding? I'm only here for the magazine! Since Codsworth was taking a long time to actually gain affinity, I decided to visit the USS Constitution. It's a quest where you help robots kill humans and become sailors. If this didn't do the trick, then I had no idea what would. Although, besides killing the first wave of scavengers, fixing some wiring, and stealing a guidance chip, I'd ultimately have to leave and find more rarer components to fix this up. Which means I now had free time. Free time to clear out a raider hideout at the BADTFL regional office, and running back to Diamond City to grab a few side quests. Like watching a marriage, going to track down baseball collector's items, painting a wall, fixing some underwater pipes, and chasing down bloatfly glands. We also visited a Boston police station where I was able to recover the magazine I couldn't grab in Mass Pike Tunnel earlier. Cleared out this house on the way to Vault 81 and waltzed into said vault, passing the speech check and failing to follow Austin around as I already knew my way about. And first stop, Alexis Combs. Although, it was clear this vault was suffering from the lack of mods, and trust me, this would not be the last we saw here. Putting all of that behind us, once I grabbed the Overseer's Guardian, I visited a classroom to tell the tale of horrors in the Commonwealth. This earned me a magazine, along with a doctor's appointment to give blood, before finding Bobby and Tina DeLuca. I sold Bobby some jet, but his sister had clearly seen better days. Her face appeared to be that of a recent victim that she'd skinned alive. But considering she was crucial for a quest and a potential new settler, I'd have to speed things up before Vault 81 collapsed before my very eyes. On our next session, I went and yelled at Ashes before returning to Vault 81 and being awarded a fusion core for my efforts. All this before the climax that is the hole in the wall quest. Austin had been infected by a rabid mole rat, which had me heading into the lower vault levels to recover a cure. However, forget all of that! We have more face melting action, which is far more important! What is happening to these people? Clearly Austin isn't the first person to have a run-in with these mole rats. Heading into the lower levels now, I started to tear through the protectrons and mole rats inside. Which is no surprise when you have an Overseer's Guardian. And on top of that, we're grabbing the mole rat disease anyway, which means there's no reason to be careful. We eventually grabbed the medicine bobblehead and rescued Curie with the serum for Austin as we headed back upstairs. This not only saved Austin's life, but finally got Codsworth to idolize me, gaining his affinity perk! Codsworth should love this, right? Yes! It allowed me to grab Curie. Finally, we were done with by far the worst companion to grind affinity with. And what was my reward? Just to talk with a scientist in the most Bethesda way possible. Now we move on to the dependency quest with Tina. She wants me to get her brother off Chet, and if I do this correctly, I can get her as a unique settler, which means I can't mess this up. God damn! I was blown away when I saw how to do this quest. Curie, look, I don't really have an option, man. He was more concerned with hitting the jet than fighting back. Believe it or not, I then passed the speech check to make Tina forget about her newly deceased brother and sent her on her way to Sanctuary. Alright, since we never ever have to touch this place again, let's head over to the Forest Grove Marsh. Normally a home for ghouls galore, but it also houses a holotape we'll need. And normally we'd get it no problem, if the game didn't crash! Arriving once again to the marsh, the ghouls took their time coming to tussle, but since Curie's laser weapon deals so much damage, we were never in any problem. Not only did we get the holotape, but we also secured a sleeping bag upstairs. Nice! And this will come in handy as our next stop is a gunner hangout spot, which houses a magazine. But gunners do significantly more damage. But hey, at least we managed to claw our way through to get the magazine. As usual, gunner life means nothing when ancient comic books are on the line. Although, whereas we had to fight gunners to get here, now I was tasked with fighting ghouls at the Poseidon Reservoir to recover some tech for the robots back at the USS Constitution, and not even slowing down time was going to save me. Thankfully, my saving grace came in the form of the Roadside Pines Hotel. Sure, some raiders were housed up and looking to turn their clubhouse into a bastion of rebellious nature, but considering I needed the location checked off and the bed they kept inside, there was little they could do when the Overseer's Guardian came a-knockin'. This closer fallback point fueled me to just charge in and see what happens, meaning that explosions were soon to follow once inside the ghoul-infested power station. And not only that, but I managed to retrieve the tech for Captain Ironsides. Besides grabbing some minor locations in the area, I then found myself at the Westing Estates where I could finally grab the baseball gear for Mo back at Sanctuary, not to mention the other magazine hiding out here. Now I could return to Diamond City and hand in all my side quests.
And why not get a haircut at the same time? Let's put those magazines to good use.
And now with a new spring in my step whilst returning to the USS Constitution, I still lacked some parts to get the ship upright, meaning once again I would have to venture off to a far distant land for another piece of tech. Don't worry, Kiri, there's no reason to be sad. Why don't we just go visit this art gallery just up the road? I hear it's to die for. And what murder gallery wouldn't be complete without being able to take home a souvenir? After one hell of an interactive art exhibit, Kiri and I visited the Irish Pride shipyard to see a docked ship, and then visited County Crossing to recruit another settlement. But forget about all of that! Kiri finally asked me to deal with her affinity quest! Finally, we could move on to someone else soon! Although a wrench was thrown into that plan. See, Kiri needed to talk to Dr. Amari specifically, but since you can't interact with her until the Dangerous Minds quest, that just meant that avoiding the main story couldn't be put off any longer, as until I finished that completion quest, Kiri would never idolize me. Seeing how we could still gain affinity though, that meant that I could still smash out smaller locations along the way. Finally conquer Fennel Hall for that magazine I left behind ages ago, and then immediately have super mutants get their revenge by repeatedly destroying me at the Revere Satellite Array. And while super mutants may be a hit or miss on whether they put up a fight or not, the feral ghouls over at the National Training Yard were pushovers in comparison. While remaining in this tiny pocket of the Commonwealth, our next stop was visiting Finch Farm to grab the Out of the Fire quest. This contained a location to discover, a bobblehead, unique weapon being the shish kebab, a magazine, and slag the raider boss who adds a tally to the named enemy bracket. However, this place also houses the Forged, who love to use flamers, and on survival difficulty, these things are crazy if not taken seriously. So you better believe I was already counting on learning the ways of propane and propane accessories. But nothing would stop me from getting my hand on that bobblehead, the magazine, and the shish kebab located here. After surviving Hank Hill's own personal heaven, I ventured out to Breakheart Banks to clear the super mutants there and earn a new settlement in the process. We grabbed a magazine at Lynn Woods before being jumped by the most ill-prepared raiders I had ever seen. And to their credits, they weren't the only ones lacking. The raiders who stole the mysterious serum from Cabot also put up no fight. Before heading back towards Diamond City to resupply, I decided to push my luck and venture towards the coastal cottage. Only problem was that since my ammo was lacking, fights were getting a lot more dire, with having to resort to Pikmin's blade to actually land any kills. We'll have to leave this spot behind for now. Risking more setbacks out here doesn't seem like a good use of time for anyone. But don't worry though, the raiders around downtown Boston were not gonna let me get off without a fight either. And finally arriving in Diamond City, and because Kiri wouldn't stop asking me about Dr. Amari, I then progressed the plot to open up the Reunions quest. Dr. Amari wouldn't be available to us until Kellogg was taken out, which at this point should just be a small detour due to our damage output. So while in the area, I decided to visit the blood bank near Fort Hagen to grab an early magazine. But sadly, I didn't have the perk needed to hack the terminal, preventing me from fondling ancient parchment, which just means I'm forced to hit all the spots in the region and make sure we invest our perks wisely. Thankfully, our lack of hacking perks didn't mean we weren't skipping out on damage. We grabbed the bobblehead, stomped out some silly synth losers who were mere shells of their Horizon infamy, and then arrived at Kellogg. Being level 35, I didn't think this would be anything but a casual bald man smackdown. However, Kellogg proved that his ability to always scale at higher level than you prevented me from taking the easy kill. Almost twice! Now able to progress the plot and grabbing the last magazine at Fort Hagen, I decided to clear some of the surrounding areas before returning to Diamond City, like the Boston Mayoral Shelter. Hopefully this place would offer up enough experience in order to grab the magazine from the blood bank before leaving. For this place being a massive underground fort with tons of winding tunnels, it was rather odd that the whole place seemed rather empty. I mean, hell, this place had its own basketball court and still didn't have enough melanin to sink a three-pointer. Even the Deathclaw wasn't even up for the task. I grabbed the magazine along with any holotapes and keys I could find, and then made my way for the exit, only to start running into more and more synths. Turns out killing Kellogg must have pissed these guys off. They were so hellbent on taking me down that they turned on their aimbot and managed to shoot my grenade straight out of the air. After making it outside, I had leveled up enough to finally grab the magazine from the blood bank, stopped off at Fiddler's Green to learn about squirrels and how to live and love, did some sightseeing as the Brotherhood wasted no time in clearing out areas of any Xeno threat, you know, typical Space Marine ideology. I killed and looted an alien who had the audacity to crash in my vicinity, then returned to Diamond City to progress the story. While I was in town, I decided to humor Piper and do her interview before running over to Good Neighbor and finally retrieving that magazine that was locked out previously. Then we dove through Kellogg's memories, and finally got Curie's affinity quest to pop! Only problem is, I forgot I had brought Piper with me to Good Neighbor. Yeah, it seems like she's not used to being let outside. So after running back, grabbing Curie, brain swapping her with a synth, and then getting a close-up while she learned how to properly use her mouth, her quest was finally done. And now, to try and appease my new robot waifu, I finally completed the USS Constitution quest, and then took her back to my place to show off my loot. Although, I forgot I had leveled up enough, which means that the way back was now blocked by the Radroach King. Now with Curie officially along for the ride at the oversight of my trophies, we visited some goofy robots who were just waiting to get the all clear to open up again, then stopped in at the Medford Memorial Hospital. Besides the lobby being full of the worst front-end staff I've ever encountered, I was here for a magazine and some super mutant armor pieces. Strong is gonna get a fashion show when he becomes our companion, and I want Homie to have as many options as possible. Moving into the rest of the area, Curie equipped with Pikmin's blade was more than keen to bury it into anything that didn't immediately run in terror. We grabbed an Eddie Winters holotape and then delved into the Molden Center Metro. Searching for a lockpicking magazine while trying to ration your ammo is already difficult. However, why not just use a different gun? And thankfully, Todd gave me just that. But I will say, this shotgun is cool and all, but seeing Curie run straight at Helter Skelter only to loot his friend's dead body and use their gun against them is priceless! With our magazine acquired, now came another dungeon crawl, this time being Vault 75. An Overseer's Guardian got acquainted with the gunners inside, but even with all of the silly mercenaries running into my bullets and winding hallways causing me to lose my bearings more than I'd like to admit, I got my magazine and bobblehead, marking another location cleared out for the greater good. I then dived into the old Gullet sinkhole for a magazine and a hat for Bunker Hill, only to then wake up and see that the Rust Devils now packed far greater firepower than I had given them credit for. Next, we visited the not-so-abandoned Macro fish packing factory, helped Barney and Salem retake the town for a few goodies, all while flirting with Curie whenever she tried to talk to me. To ease our travels, we also stopped in at Sandy Coves. I began by speech-checking a Mr. Handy for a key that led to a magazine and safe bed to rest at, all before heading to the local Museum of Witchcraft to grab a few holotapes, a magazine, and the Deathclaw egg that was barely being guarded. This all combined for a perfect date between Curie and the perfect finish was visiting Hugo's hole only to hint about what was to come later for our budding relationship. Heading off in the opposite direction to avoid another embarrassment, we dropped off the Deathclaw egg, earning us the Deathclaw gauntlet, and then amassed all of our completion pieces back in Sanctuary. With the Brotherhood of Steel now fully back in the Commonwealth, it was now time to take Danse up on that vertibird ride he offered me days ago. And after humoring the Brotherhood with all of their military mumbo-jumbo, Curie and I immediately went out on another mission which involved doing drive-bys in vertibirds and then clearing the super mutants in Fort Strong in pursuit of holotapes and a magazine. Since we were in the area, I decided to stop by the Nordhagen beach settlement to get the recruitment mission. However, no such mission could be acquired, whether this is because Preston was at the castle waiting for me, a specific quest that was needed, or Fallout 4 just being Fallout 4, I could not say. But surely this will fix itself later. I'll just come back. So that just means we hit up East City Downs to watch some robots races while fighting the fans when our pick loses. Thankfully there's a magazine here to calm the vibes down. By this point in the run, we were over 30 hours, which is insane to say, but considering we're smashing out everything Fallout 4 has to offer, it won't be too surprising when I say we aren't even halfway through yet. And trust me, we'll easily triple the playtime we have now by the time this run is over. But for what we've accomplished up to this point, we're on a good pace. We go to a new location due to quest and hard clear every location in the immediate area before moving back over. This prevents some of the backtracking, and ensures that all of the miscellaneous quests, along with any majors, are knocked out with little chance of conflicting. Not zero, but we'll touch base on that later. Picking back up with the footage that had been playing on the screen, we smashed out the East Boston Prep School before reporting back to Maxon and then visiting the castle to finally give Preston his big day out, which was reduced to blitzing down the Mirelurk Queen and her children with hardly any pushback. Thanks for the free magazine, I guess. And what's better than taking out a Mirelurk Queen? How about swimming to an abandoned island, grabbing a luck bobblehead, and then killing another queen and her children? Then we pestered some settlers at the Warwick homestead who sadly wouldn't join the Minutemen regime. And then visited a beach ship full of people speaking a language with too many dots and umlauts. At least they had a magazine and bobblehead I could still make sense of. Pushing through a factory of raiders for a named enemy, a magazine, and bobblehead, this side of the map was proving to be far more fruitful than any we had seen yet. Mainly because of Quincy, and man, the gunners were not fucking around here. I don't usually come down this way in a normal playthrough, but holy shit, I was not prepared for this. Curie and I were tearing through enemies with the finesse of a beached dolphin. With shots coming from all sides, we were forced to fight and secure a holdout position before regrouping and pushing for the next. Nukes and rockets aimed to see us resetting the area, which reduced our speed to ensure we weren't caught off guard. But moving carefully is only half the battle. Just looking in front of you isn't enough. Okay, we're doing alright though. We're doing alright. What? What? What the fuck was that? The gunners were dispatched on another attempt, but the horrors of the Commonwealth persisted, mainly with Big Mac and his goons at the Automatoys factory. We're not clearing this one anytime soon, so instead, I humored some discount Brotherhood outcasts to run some parts to the Warwick homestead, earning myself some crab cakes in the process. Only for gunners to come through and get revenge for their fallen homies. Except, the Atom Cats don't roll like that. For the rest of this area, there was little to report other than your typical Commonwealth hostile greeting, and even when you did howdy do your neighbors, the others would run your pockets far faster than white people would clear potato salad at a cookout. As far as reporting the carnage to you, we stomped out a factory full of Big Mac worshippers, fought through some excavators hiding a ghoul boss who just wanted to praise Nurgle, showed some raiders at Hyde Park what it's like to be in the unfortunate path of the MC's path of comic collecting, found a ghoul child who created more questions than answers for the entirety of the Fallout franchise before returning him home when my brain began to hurt. And then cleared out a ghoul-infested town full of cretins hell-bent on keeping their retirement tied up in baseball collector's items. With another section hard cleared and trying to get a better leg up on understanding the denizens of the Commonwealth, I stopped off at a college full of crabs and robot humans trying to blend into society. Kind of like normal college, but without the impending fear of failing your class because you can't afford the book for the course. Thankfully, this one is free. With the fee of tuition to college still needing to be funded, Curie and I decided to rob a bank. And to say Curie wasn't exactly along for the ride was an understatement. She practically jumped right out of her skin. To bring her back down to reality, we stopped by to grab some food, only to learn that the staff weren't ready for us and a scuffle was impossible to avoid. Well, if we won't be served, then we'll just have to serve ourselves. Luckily, the brewery was still open. Another pleasant day in the books. All that's left to do is rob someone who won't be coming home and then return to ours to drop off the goods. Seeing how we still needed quite a bit of stuff from downtown Boston, it was time to fleece Hubris Comics for all of its valuables. And I do mean everything. Fuck you, stinky comic shop patrons. I don't care what grade your PSA return got. I'm just here to get a gift for a friend. After grabbing the silver shroud gear for Kent back at Good Neighbor, I decided to humor him and took up the mantle of said character, which had Curie throwing us her companion perk for helping the little people. So keeping that same energy, we stopped by a spit-swapping cage match between the returning star Kate and a group of disorderly onlookers. Well, would-be onlookers, as Kate is currently being recruited and Curie is heading home to Sanctuary. Besides having a new bad bitch as my companion, one without a true moral compass, we headed back into Good Neighbor to finally get some of those more questionable quests underway. Like finally checking in with Bobby for the big dig. Besides clearing out some Mirelurks minding their own business, I was now tasked with heading out to Diamond City to break Mel out of jail, and since Kate likes it when I act a little wild, I threatened the guard to release Mel from prison. It doesn't matter if he was getting out today, I need him now! With the expedition crew fully fleshed out, we dove through Mirelurk-infested tunnels looking for a big score, only to wind up in Hancock's personal empty storeroom. Bobby, you have got to be the worst at planning. This isn't Diamond City! Hancock seeing that I was confused, gave me an option to walk away from all of this, and taking advantage of the opportunity, I talked Bobby out of it too, earning me the Ashmaker and the option to recruit Hancock later at the cost of pissing off Kate. Kate, I have to level with you. Your happiness is extremely easy to gain. Don't act like you're all high and mighty. With Good Neighbor sorted for now, I visited Cabot to drop off the mysterious serum that had somehow managed to dodge being used by accident over and over. And while Cabot was grateful, he cut the celebration short by asking me now to track down his missing sister. Considering how strong I was by this point, I figured this would be no issue. I even talked up Magnolia and stole her clothes in more ways than one. I was that confident in how things were going. That was, until I went to break Imogene out of her cultist boyfriend's hideout. Is this a joke? This was a major setback. Yes, I could just install a mod to console command in the quest. Yes, I could clip into the building and potentially still grab the completion pieces. But considering the rest of the run had been without any major game-breaking bugs, this just meant that the full completion would have to wait until the subsequent runs. Meaning now I was off to drown my sorrows in the Shamrock Tap House looking for a drinking buddy. Then diving off the pier once I learned that I could either complete the quest or keep Buddy as a unique settler. Thankfully, the Yangtze was there to save me from a watery grave, and even had the potential to give me a few completion pieces itself, like the Submariner outfit, his sword, and some homing beacons to call in airstrikes later on. And all I had to do was fix his submarine. Ooh, where's his sword? I did everything I was supposed to. Where's his sword? What do you mean I have to speech check him 3 times before I start this quest? You know, normally I'd be mad about our game crashing on survival, but considering this sets me back before we even got Buddy, I'll allow it this time. After rebooting, grabbing all the holotapes, and rescuing Buddy once again, I strolled over to the Yangtze and hopped up on Great Mentats to persuade Captain Zhao to give up his family heirloom. Don't mind me as I just remove these ghouls from your submarine real fast. Although, there is one more thing I need. See, this ghoul has a fancy new hat, but Zhao is the only one who has the submariner outfit. Zhao, Todd has sealed your fate. I need that outfit. To prevent further murdering of pixels on the screen in order to procure pretty outfits, Kate and I trounced through the Mass Bay Medical Center in order to find a way to save lives instead of taking them. All except for gunners though. I've become desensitized to these guys turning into red mist when XP is on the line. Just make sure that when you're fighting them, you equip a useful grenade. Flares are cool and all, but they do little in the way of damage. Since we only found more ways on how to remove life rather than save it, we decided to hit up Trinity Tower and test out our newfound knowledge on the super mutants there, which was pretty smooth. Well, mostly. Now with Rex Goodman and Strong saved, we all took a relaxing elevator ride. Elevator's full, you'll need to wait your turn! Upon reaching the bottom, I got a new pretty dress from Rex and the ability to recruit Strong as a companion. Not now, my milk-wanting companion, but soon, and it will be glorious! Before heading back out to resupply at Diamond City, we scoured through some smaller out-of-the-way locations to mark them off on the map, made it to Arturo to grab some supplies, got up close and personal with Yefim, and then tried to start the Confidence Man quest for Travis, except homie was nowhere to be seen. It's after 6 p.m., Travis. Where the hell are you? This is goofy, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but not the end of the world. While we're in town, though, I could do the case files for Ellie, which had me chasing down Doc Crocker, who tried to pull a Bobby DeLuca only with less pizzazz, and then finding a grasshopper on a roof, which led to a new weapon and a note. And while in the area, we might as well join the railroad for all it's worth, and start the Tradecraft quest. Now, I don't like the railroad, but since they have some quests that we can do without being locked out, we might as well do them. I then returned to Good Neighbor to grab the quest for the Boston Public Library. Throughout my travels, I had been scrounging up overdue books, and with this, I could buy the magazine inside for 50 book return tokens. But what's the rush? Irma over in the memory den had 3 separate things needed for our completion status, and I'll be damned if I'm not taking those while we have the chance. Alright, now we can hit up the library. Then I could run halfway across the Commonwealth to meet up with Deacon to begin Tradecraft. Tradecraft by far is one of the most Fallout quests of all time. Starting off scaring a railroad member with the wrong countersign, then diving immediately into a synth overrun train enthusiast hideout. But there isn't much to report here other than mass synth extinction, but we did pick up a magazine and receive the Deliverer, which I definitely won't use against the very same faction that gave it to me. No sir, why would I do that? With these quests knocked out, it was time to return to Sanctuary and drop off our loot. And Kate, seeing how capable we were when it came time to get the job done, she opened up and gave me her companion quest, meaning now it was time to sort out the bottom left of the map. Next stop, the Glowing Sea. On our way to the part of the map where all fun goes to die, I stopped by Grey Garden to complete some unmarked quests, and began the Troubled Waters quest to gain the settlement. And since the Brotherhood were so nice as to clear the outside ages ago, there was little some spicy crabs inside could do to stop me from draining the water there. This earned me a magazine and a settlement. We also stopped by Oberlin Station to turn in their quest as well. Now we could go to Diamond City and stock up on supplies before heading out. And to my surprise, after heading to the dugout inn to drop a save, Travis decided to cooperate for his quest. Which just means we get to bully some would-be thugs, hook Travis up with a lady, all before abandoning him right before he asked us to go to the Beantown Brewery to rescue Vadim. Just means we won't be able to save in town for a while. Now, I've put off the Glowing Sea long enough. It's time to head out. Well, maybe after stopping off and grabbing some completion pieces from the Coast Guard Pier, and overthrowing the nearby marina, and stopping in at a radio station to grab another magazine and a level 4 merchant. So since we're nearby, we might as well visit the Electrical Hobbyist Club. What? There was an Assaultron here. Oh! Oh, wow. Alright, no more side stops. It's time to get Kate cleaned up. Trust me, this is just a tease of what's to come when we need to grind out levels. But I know what you're here for. The main event! With Kate now fixed, this got me her companion perk and a personal meat shield. See, I needed to smash out as many of these locations as I could on the way to Virgil to prevent backtracking, which means Kate was going to be taking all of our backshots as I ran for my life. And since we had her companion perk, I don't care if she gets lost along the way now. This was all while I could run though, because for some completely explainable reason, there is a lack of beds out here. And with survival slowly dragging me down more and more because I prioritized kebs and ammos over non-existent bedrolls, the longer I went meant the more my speed was reduced. And even when I did find a save inside an unmarked building, I took even more negatives because Todd Howard decided sleeping for 3 hours in a sleeping bag in the middle of a radiation hellhole surrounded by hostile creatures hell-bent on turning you into a midnight snack would leave you exhausted. You know, the man might be onto something. Since retreating wasn't an option, I pushed forward. We found a suit of power armor that would at least keep the rats at bay, but I had to keep dropping gear to prevent myself from being reduced to a crawl. However, against all odds, I did make it to the Children of Adam, stole their magazine, and then stumbled into Virgil's cave. Although he does possess a few items I'll need for later, I don't want the possibility of aggroing him yet, meaning I'll play ball and progress the plot for now. But you're on thin ice, buddy! This had us taxiing back to Green Tech Genetics to drop a save before venturing off the Slam Gunners. But let's be honest, you know how this goes, so we'll just skip to the Courser instead. Oh no. Yes! Oh, I killed the wrong guy. Yes! Did I get him? Oh my god! Well, 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 if it isn't the silly little synth. Motherfucker. With the Courser chip in hand, I raced over to Good Neighbor, grabbed Hancock, and slept to save. There's no reason to run over to the railroad right away, however, meaning now it was time to clear out the quest log I had. First, Hancock and I cleared out the scum and Good Neighbor as the Silver Shroud and her ghoul sidekick, interrogated Whitechapel Charlie, and then ransacked the 3 warehouses in town for some quick experience and supplies, all before tracking down Kendra and ending her reign of terror. Considering this next part of the Silver Shroud quest would see us venturing off to Bunker Hill, I also picked up a miscellaneous quest for Deb to clear the National Guard training yard, which was extremely underwhelming besides the one ghoul that was still there, but there was also a certain Shelley Tiller, the target Kendra was after, and seeing how I've never done this before, and since it's all in the name of completion, Homegirl got put down, lickety-split, much to the distaste of Hancock. It's okay, I know how to turn that frown upside down. Here, treat your eyes on this! And it seemed it did the trick because now heading off once again on behalf of Bunker Hill, Hancock was now stuck jumping for joy. Just disregard the fact I may have my own personal rain cloud following me inside this sealed building, because I didn't even notice it during the playthrough. Although the best part of revisiting the previously cleared out areas though, just means that these places are practically all done for you, with the exception of usually one enemy. With Bunker Hill sorted for the time being, I returned to the railroad to finally decipher the Courser chip. By doing tradecraft before we did Green Tech Genetics, this meant I wasn't locked in deciding with the railroad, and could build the teleporter for any other faction at this point. Which is great because that means I can knock out as many of the other missions as possible before their inevitable demise. This time at least. I humored the railroad by picking up as many quests as possible and exhausting all dialogue with Tinker Tom. This is by far one of the most important things we could do, as it'll make getting the ballistic weave much easier. But enough of that. With the Courser chip decoded, I headed back to Good Neighbor to move along the Silver Shroud quest. Got some money from that assassination I did, then took out Swan and cleared out the immediate area for uniques and collectibles. With Diamond City on our path to the lower areas of the Commonwealth, I stopped by and bought a house, all before getting wrapped up in a chem ambush that left no survivors, but gave me tons of caps. I said no survivors! Once again on the path of home wrecking, we stopped off at the DB Technical High School. Not only was there a magazine here, but there was arguably one of the best headpieces ever. And since luck will be needed greatly later on, we also grabbed the varsity jacket just before leaving. We also smashed out the Wilson's Automatoys headquarters. Besides the tons of super mutants here, our main reason for visiting was the holotapes spread throughout the factory. There's also the Giddy Up Buttercup on display, but we'll touch base on that later. Because the holotapes in this area were a bitch to find! I mean, look at this! This thing is nearly being swallowed by the floor! No wonder I needed help finding it! Thank you, Mad Dog, you absolute legend! To round out this session, I decided to finally complete Diamond City Blues in its entirety, after grabbing a quick magazine from the lower areas. And with the chem workers dealt with, this gave me a perfect way to smash out the crafting achievement while I was here. Might as well grab the magazine from the General Atomics factory as well, all before swinging by the castle to complete the Old Guns quest for Ronnie Shaw, all to gain some new drip, some random bottles, and a small light show that I will never see again. And it turns Ronnie into a vendor, which allows you to buy a Gauss weapon. With Hancock and I returning to Sanctuary, I let Preston know I would never be doing another mission for him ever again, as his faction had outlived their purpose. At least in theory. Settlements weren't for the greater good anymore, but for my own personal gain. And as long as I needed Benevolent Leader, I would sorta kinda think about these settlements in the same way you think about a snack after you just ate. Do I really need it? Or am I just filling a void until a certain achievement pops? Before leaving my bastion of completion, I decided now is the time to start outfitting the place with stores to offload all of my unwanted goods, and then set off to pick up Danse from that magic sky blimp of his. This was mainly due to the fact that I still had the Lost Patrol quest that I wanted to complete with him for a huge affinity boost. Not to mention the loot the mission carried. Although, that quest isn't going anywhere, which means I could chase up some hidden loot that a message in a bottle told me about. There's 6 of these and we'll need to hit every one for max quests. And much like max quests, another magazine calls to us, which meant everyone near the Revier Beach station was one wrong move away from losing their breathing rights. Same goes for the super mutants at the Revier Satellite Array. Not only did they have a magazine to make my sneaking better, but they also possessed a holotape and loot on how to progress the Lost Patrol quest. We grabbed the magazine from the nearby marina, grabbed the gainer just outside of Hub City Wreckers, visited Longneck's cannery where we tried to recruit Trader Riley, but sadly this is the last time we'll see her as she seemingly disappeared from the entire game. However, there's a quest here, so Danse and I tore through the ghoul-infested factory, earning some pretty close calls along the way, but ultimately grabbing a bobblehead and a magazine for our troubles. Next up was seizing the Kingsport Lighthouse for a settlement, conquering the Crater House to score a new magazine, chasing down another bottle treasure, having our hopes and dreams crushed at obtaining Reba due to Barney pulling a Trader Riley, went diving for another treasure, and then we hit up the slog to turn in a quest that I had done ages ago without knowing I did it. Getting back on track, we finally arrived at the recon bunker towards the tip of the map, where we were greeted by Paladin Brandis, a jumpy fellow who didn't want to come back to the Brotherhood of Steel no matter how much a cute girl tried to persuade him. And since he didn't want to give me an award, I decided to take the things I needed from him, which to my surprise ended with an elderly falling and not being able to get up. Danse was understandably pissed, but chill, dude. If your paladin here just let me fiddle his pockets in peace, I could have taken his armor and gun and happily been on my way. But no! He wanted to attempt to kill me! I'm disappointed in you, Danse. Pick better friends. With the goods secured and the mission successful, Danse and I headed towards Nahant. Besides a holotape, a settlement, and a magazine, this place was pretty tame besides the welcoming party. However, something else happened here that had nothing to do with the area itself. For example, while I was fighting some glowing mud crabs, I lost 10 Pines Bluff as a settlement. I didn't even know this could happen. I've never dealt with the settlements long enough to find out about this, which means eventually I'll need to go get that back again, which just means we'll have to do another settlement quest. Hey buddy, do you think I could catch a ride back to the Pridwin? After walking back to the Pridwin and turning in the Lost Patrol quest, I picked up a side quest called Duty or Dishonor, which had me interrogating some knights due to missing rations and supplies, sleuthing through their belongings, and then doing my best to tail someone without being noticed. Fuck off, mate, I said without being noticed! Now I'm doing my best Sam Fisher impersonation while slinking through an abandoned car park. Eventually I found the culprit responsible for giving away our supplies, and worse yet, he was feeding ghouls! But since I needed him for a special reward, I got him to turn himself in, which granted me the Exemplar's T60C torso. I'll never use this, but it's coming back to the completion box whether it wants to or not. Cue another bottle hunt! Getting swindled into opening up a credit card, witnessed a gunner refuse to stop dancing, and raiding military checkpoints for silly printed images. All before the raid that was Big John Salvage. By this point, super mutants only spawned in Master and Overlord variants, and with the amount of lead and lasers being sent Danse and my way, it was inevitable that shell shock would sink in. The only thing behind those eyes is fear. Bringing Danse back down to reality, I solved a small puzzle to grab some completion pieces and then strolled over to a parking garage that seemed like it was more created to test my patience than scare anyone. However, it housed the best paint job in the game, so I'll count it as worth it this time. Before Danse and I dived into the Milton General Hospital, we borrowed a Deathclaw egg from an absent mother, just in case we needed a snack while fighting the raiders, which I must say the deliverer was more than capable of dealing with. Sure, we may not be spec'd into stealth, but who needs that when you're carrying around a giant Sith wearing power armor? If the raiders don't hear me coming, that's on them. Finally arriving at Kent and St. John, I tried my best to defuse the situation, but St. John is overly trigger happy and will shoot Kent unless you walk in and just air the room out. With the wrongs at Horizon sorted, we wasted no time in kicking in the door to the super mutant occupied West Roxbury Station. Danse may not care for lockpicking and hacking, but since I need at least 50 of each for achievements, I'm still making sure to get my fill. But as far as dungeons go, I did like the constant moving train cars as a puzzle idea. Plus, the magazine made lockpicking easier, which is always a huge bonus. But while we were riding on a high of clearing out the nearby locations in one fell swoop, the Fallon's department store showed me that super mutants cared more about guarding their precious magazines than their own lives. And with ammo beginning to run dry, I was resorting to using weapons that were far less effective at clearing the hordes. Which sadly sent Danse and I packing to the last bed we stayed at. We retreated back to Good Neighbor to get more ammo, and while we were there also turned in the Silver Shroud quest to Hancock, all before taking a taxi back to Sanctuary to remove all of the excess gear I didn't need now that quests had been ticked off. It seems the settler in Sanctuary Hills might be practicing magic in their spare time. I guess that's what happens when they don't have a proper settlement to stay in. Maybe eventually I'll fix this place up. But this time is not one of those, which means I'm now off to go do more Minutemen quests to kill some time. And thankfully, one of those happens to be within the Dunwich Borers, which I'll be needing for a few more checklist items. Mainly in holotapes named Enemies and Kremvid's Tooth, a sick-looking design on an otherwise forgettable weapon. Where are all my Adam's Judgment enjoyers? The best melee weapon in the whole game! Although while this place was normally housed by pretty run-of-the-mill raiders, now the inhabitants have been replaced by a death squad hell-bent on erasing my existence. Thankfully, I have the ability of plot armor, a big gun, and some of the most questionable aim to balance it all out. We eventually made it inside and slowly walked through removing any raiders we came across, all before diving headfirst into Lovecraftian territory as we fought off a ghoul horde. All to gain a bobblehead, some holotapes, killed some named enemies, and the pinnacle weapon itself! That will forever live inside a box. Now all that was left to do was fight off some Enclave members who made the worst mistake by setting up shop near a raider hideout. Sucks to be them, at least I'll still get to head home and drop off all of my rewards. You should have picked a better faction. Alright, considering a lot of our running around has been due to side quests, let's knock out a few more! So grabbing Preston, we raced off the Covenant and began the Human Error quest, which had me looking into a missing person. But considering I'm here buying the unique weapons and armor for Penny, you may already have an idea on how this is gonna go. Although, what you may not have anticipated is that I managed to speech check my way through this location without killing a single guard. But to complete the quest the way I wanted, I'd have to eventually overthrow the entire operation down here. I'd have to kill Dr. Rosalind and every guard, and yes, I'd have to murder every occupant in Covenant, but there is a reason I needed the settlement. And in this run, Preston's feelings are far more important than that of the townsfolk. With Preston in tow, it only made more sense to continue sucking up the settlements, which means you goofballs finally can get some upgrades. Put them to good use, or this settlement's population is about to nosedive. We cleared out some super mutants while earning us a magazine in the process, turned in said quest, and then blew any reward money on the unique weapons sold at the Diamond City market. Then we completed 2 more small miscellaneous quests that I'm positive I've already done by this point, before heading off to help Travis at the Beantown Brewery. Not only was this a super easy mission to knock out, but we also picked up a Gwyneth Brew holotape for Buddy and got a magazine for our troubles, all before heading south in search of more bottle stashes. Only for one of the greatest things to happen. Warwick Homestead got a quest through Radio Freedom. This otherwise ignored station uses proximity to allocate settlement quests, and usually to get Warwick Homestead as a settlement, you'd have to do a quest called Plugging the Leak for the Institute, which we don't even have access to yet. Ultimately, this just saves a tiny bit of running around, but seeing how multiple quests up to this point decided to take a vacational approach when being given to you, I'll take what I can get at this point. Speaking of settlements, Preston and I also traveled to the Murkwater construction site to remove a Mirelurk Queen from our soon-to-be bastion of safety. And by safety, I mean I got to save here, and that's all it ever needs to do. We'll also be stopping off at the ghoul-infested Suffolk County Charter School to retrieve a confiscated magazine on our way through. And while we're visiting schools to further our learning, how about the Shaw High School just up the road? Instead of ghouls, we'll have super mutants, but we get a magazine, holotape, and a few keys at the same time. Normally after doing a few of these smash and grabs, I'd head home, turn in my quests, stock back up on ammo, just reset the momentum that we'd been working with. But not this time. I had plenty of ammo, and I'll be damned if I'm letting some wannabe beast snaggers hold the Fallon's department store from me. With our trophies gathered, Preston and I made the mistake of walking back to the Warwick Homestead to turn in its settlement quests. What's the mistake, you might ask? Oh, nothing major, just taking a stroll. A stroll that leads right through Quincy? I figured the gunners would all be dead since we were here not that long ago, but no! These motherfuckers have what appears to be the fastest spawn in the whole game, and because they have actual weapons that can actually hurt things, unlike Preston here, I'd have to fight my way through using him as bait in an effort to not lose the progress we had so viciously fought for. Through the sound of plasma fire and filling the burning holes in my flesh with nothing more than stim packs, we made it back to the homestead and solidified our settlements. I was so close to having all of them at this point, and once I did, I would only need to manage them for Benevolent Leader. Hopefully, with how hard it was to get this one, the others would fall into place. Unless Bethesda wants to pull a Bethesda. On our next session, major quests needed to be completed, and for as long as I had been putting them off, the railroad was up first. I snuck through the night to help Synths run away from the Institute, which opened up the Ticonderoga safe house and a magazine. All before being tasked with retrieving dead drops and setting up Milas throughout the Commonwealth. And while the latter is as simple as walking up to an OSHA violation and setting up a machine, make sure to keep an eye out for any Rust Devils that would be toting one of the best weapons in the game. That's alright, at least the dead drop is still a possibility. Fuck me, I guess. Now, I don't know if it's the next gen update or if this game is crumbling under the sheer girth of our save file, but this seems to be happening more and more as the run goes on. At least I could still complete some side quests in the meantime before reporting back to the railroad and telling them their mission is scuffed. While this is a goofy setback, we opened up jackpots, and if I've done everything right, after completing it, I'll have access to Ballistic Weave. Well, your fate is already sealed for this run, Railroad, but I'll let you live just that extra bit longer. And while I do wish there was more to report for this session, most of the next few quests were all side quests in trying to clear out semi-radiant missions that would be thrown my way. However, I did find a pretty cool way to defend settlements from attacks in the process. Can I build these guys? Oh, I can! Yes! Yes. I need to build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. I'm building defenses. I'm making sure that these guys have stuff. Trust me. Trust me. It works the way it's intended, okay? Like, it might look a little goofy, but I'm telling you now, it's got everything in the bag. Aha! I built your defenses! With County Crossing saved, I stopped off at Sanctuary to stash our gear and then traveled all the way back to Virgil to finally get the Institute teleporter up and running. The Institute has very few quests we can do before getting locked out of the other factions. So since we have nearly all locations, uniques, and non-main quests sorted up to this point, the only way forward is to visit a scientist's personal Disneyland full of morally questionable decisions. However, even with all of the junk I had accumulated along the way, I was still missing components for the teleporter. Which is just fine by me because now I get to swing by the Gunner's Plaza and retrieve 3 separate holotapes, a magazine, a bobblehead, as well as 3 named enemies. I mean, this place had it all! Now I can stop off at the Milton General Hospital again to grab the missing biometric scanner, and the Listening Post Bravo to grab a circuit board, all before returning back to the Boston airport to build the teleporter. We're siding with the Brotherhood this time due to the fact that they have the most uniques associated with them, post-lockout emissions, which means we can really only do 3 main quests here along with some minor side ones tossed in. Once inside the Institute, I showed my son the absolute glow-up his mom had had since she didn't have to worry about him anymore, and carried over that same energy to my real son and made sure to pay attention to his good little science experiment he had going on. If you keep this up and eat your vegetables, you're gonna grow up to be a healthy, strong little scientist, Sean. Yes, you are. Father loved the attention he was getting and introduced his friends in the same manner you give fetch quests. And luckily, while doing this, I'm not on rails, or else I wouldn't have been able to buy all the uniques from the rec officer here. With my main mission being to recruit Madison Lee, I hacked my way into the FEV lab to recover some holotapes for her and I, as well as the cure for the virus for Virgil. He's lucky this is a miscellaneous quest, or I wouldn't have even stopped off to grab this. In fact, this might be the very first time I've ever done so. Madison, now sorted, agreed to rejoin the Brotherhood. I asked Father about Libertalia, turned in the holotape to Proctor Ingram, and could proceed with the Brotherhood questline, as well as the Railroad questline. We're triple agents now, baby, and this will surely not blow up in our face later. First, we kicked the Brotherhood into full production with getting Liberty Prime up and running, all before heading to Sanctuary and grabbing Danse to ruin our reputation. See, I was now heading off to Libertalia to smash out the Synth Retention quest, although in my hubris I overlooked something rather important. Why would you take a synth, hating synth, to a mission to recapture synths while working for the synths? Just look at how many hated pop-ups I'm getting here. Oh yeah, there's also a fat man wielding raider here too. I also forgot about that. Pushing up the namesake ship, I grabbed the magazine and the legendary shotgun, all before heading upstairs to get even more hated pop-ups. I'm doing great! We've lost 105 affinity in 5 minutes. And keeping that same energy and praying to Todd Howard, I hit up the Cabot house once again, just on the off chance that the Imogene Takes a Lover quest would fix itself. And seeing that unfortunately that wasn't the case, I decided to rob Cabot of his clothes, as that would still count towards completion. Except, I never expected this man to be so ripped. God damn, Cabot! Raiders spend their entire lives to achieve this level of build. Meanwhile, you're over here keeping it locked up. Always one step ahead, I see. Speaking of being one step ahead, I headed back to the railroad to turn in some quests. Then playing double agent, I went and turned in Synth Retention. Except now it was time to be ultra sneaky. While I was visiting the railroad, I had picked up an encrypted holotape, which was a bitch to find amongst this list here. But when I did, I found out about a secret agent also playing double agent, Mr. Liam Bennett. You have one role and one role only. Sort of. I guess now that I think about it, not really, but I'm still gonna talk to you anyways. Liam wanted me to head to the Cambridge Polymer Labs to retrieve a pre-war password to help him free some synths from the Institute. And after sweet talking my way inside, Deacon and I got to work firing the previous scientists, only to then play with the elements and pretend to know what we were doing. But something must have worked out as we got the legendary power armor piece at the cost of Molly's life, which of course meant a small victory celebration was in order. Drop a stim pack for the meme? I'll give you 10. There. 10 old stim packs. Meh. Seeing how we were only just up the road from Imogene's disappearance, I decided to stop by, you know, just to see how the cultists were doing. Not because I was secretly hoping the game would fix itself. You know, I went expecting this, and somehow I'm still disappointed. Moving forward, I started to put up another Mila, to which Deacon began to run into a wall as a sign of rebellion. And with a bit of free time hanging over our heads, I decided to head back out to 10 Pines Bluff to pick up their next recruitment quest. Hopefully this is the last time we have to do this, but I highly doubt that. We smashed out Reed Marina to clear out a courser who refused to go down without calling in backup, visited Nordhagen Beach again to see if the settlers would kindly join my Minutemen campaign, to which they said no. And then we set up even more Milas before revisiting Captain Ironside to retrieve my lieutenant's hat for a job well done. This was all being accomplished while still trying to get Deacon to love me by fiddling locks, and since I had been to most of these locations already, locks were taking their sweet time to reset, making Deacon feel like the longest companion to grind by this point. But we'll see how it truly is in comparison, considering I still have about half the roster to do. With Deacon still dragging his feet behind me, we stomped out some synth presents at the Ticonderoga safe house, yelled at some lady for killing someone she cared about, which isn't very specific at this point, did a second recruitment quest for 10 Pines Bluff, tried to attack a small Rust Devil encampment only to forget I'm not immortal and redo everything I just did all over again. Survival mode is truly amazing. At least it didn't take too much longer to regain 10 Pines Bluff after that debacle. And what's better than doing one settlement quest? Doing another! But this time it was for Somerville Place, another settlement that had been avoiding the Minutemen regime. But thanks to Radio Freedom, I could go revisit Hyde Park and it would finally be mine! But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. First I needed to go visit Virgil to drop off a serum and retrieve my payment in the form of his unique weapon and super mutant armor. A very fair trade. Now it's time for the massacre at Hyde Park. And this is the only reason why we joined the Brotherhood on survival mode. Who the hell wants to walk back and forth? Since we had to head back to Sanctuary this time to turn in the quest anyways, I also decided to spruce up my settlement. Since we would need to get the Benevolent Leader achievement for max happiness in a settlement, I figured now it was the time to actually care. With Sanctuary being a constant reminder of something I won't be able to achieve in this run, I decided to progress the plot by taking on Bunker Hill, which almost seemed too easy due to the fact that we were playing all three factions against each other. Turrets, however, are not part of any faction. Trying again and making sure to remove the courser as well as the turrets, I let the sense escape to please Deacon, or at least I think he liked it? Only to get yelled at by Father, who instead of seeing through my treachery, promoted me to the next head of the company? What a swell guy! Since I was now head to be for the Institute, I decided to go and try to use my future funds to summon Imogene from her hiding spot. Sadly, not enough money in the world can bring back an NPC lost to Bethesda magic. But I will not give up the chase just yet!
I will look for you. I will find you.
It doesn't just work.
With the Battle of Bunker Hill proving that the settlers of said settlement were only one mission away from biting the dust, they finally agreed to join the Minutemen. We turned in another quest to Warwick Homestead, and then proceeded to revisit some areas to hunt down some missing notes, keys, or holotapes. Look, it was inevitable that we'd have to come back eventually, but this is a blessing in disguise. Since companions gain passive affinity just by traveling with you, this meant I could grind out Deacon at the same time, especially since most of the terminals in the Commonwealth had been hacked by this point. Since we still needed Benevolent Leader, and as much as I didn't want to, settler happiness was gonna have to be a main focus, along with my 3 faction companions moving forward, which just meant hitting even more side quests along our travels. Did I mention that most of these involve the railroad and chasing down their dead agents or setting up Milas, though? No wonder I avoid this faction on most of my playthroughs! Not to mention there's raiders that care so little for their own lives that they would rather take out the entire fucking building they were in than let you escape! Realizing that all my companions needed to come home to Sanctuary to get the most out of stopping off to do an affinity task every once in a while, I grabbed Danse to head off to Hangman's Alley along with a suit of power armor to constantly get in and out of to satisfy everyone's favorite Buzz Lightyear cosplayer. We ventured off to Hangman's Alley to recruit all of our companions there to send them back to the main base. Danse loved this idea as he opened up to me on the return trip. This won't be enough for his affinity perk, however, but it's a start. Speaking of starts, let's get started on X688 and knock out the House Divided. It seemed the Institute was having some issues with unions, and in the most straightforward way possible, we removed the union by removing the underlings and banishing the leaders. Such a peaceful resolution. Now the Institute has less to worry about and less wages to pay. Now on my way back to Sanctuary with all of my companions at my disposal, I picked Deacon back up to head to Vault 111 to grab the Cryolator. And with a bit of extra caps burning a hole in my pocket and wanting to level up in our own downtime, I began constructing gunner cages. You knew it was coming, it was inevitable at this point. However, I also made some settlement defenses. To defend from the inevitable gunner attacks, of course. What else? But I will say, even with everything we had, emptying out the cages showed mixed results. I now saw that my lack of damage output was going to constantly put my settlers in harm's way to not being able to actually use chems or risk displeasing everybody at the same time. But seeing how we still have a ways before we have every perk, we'll have plenty of time to figure that part out. So heading into the next session, I was either maxing out Deacon's affinity or throwing him off a bridge. By this point, he had taken the longest to gain his perk, and considering I still had Danse and X6 to do before we could continue doing faction quests, this meant I was gonna have to focus these guys down whether I wanted to or not. Which meant Deacon and I revisited the super duper Martin Lexington, just praying to find Eternal to hack or pleasing his thirst for blood, whichever came first at this point. Only for neither to be met here. So, now heading back to Corvega as it was the next logical location, I knew that at least some terminals inside had been left untouched on my first and second visits. And finally, we achieved a reward for the clicking of computer keys. Finally, it's over! So now scurrying back to Sanctuary like I had just found a golden ticket out of companion hell, I snatched Danse by the neck to immediately head off in pursuit of Brotherhood of Steel missions. Now without the fear of pissing off the railroad. It may only be one mission until Danse fucks off for a while, but hey, this is still affinity being gained and you can't put a price on quality bonding time. We headed off to the glowing sea in order to grab the nukes for Liberty Prime, while also making sure to smash out the last few remaining locations that I didn't get to grab on my first expedition, along with wiping out the majority of the Enclave remnants camping out the Atlantic offices. I couldn't allow the Colonel to outtrip me, so in the most Highlander fashion possible, there can only be one. Not only did this knock off a few completion pieces, but it also opened up the map for us to smash out a few more Enclave camps spread throughout the Commonwealth, each with their own magazine to grab. At the Sentinel site, we wasted no time getting to work, and by work, I mean constantly getting out of power armor multiple times to please the big dummy I kept as company. Besides the murder of random ghouls not long for this world, there was little to report here, with me even being able to speech check out of the Children of Adam fight at the end. With the bomb secure, Danse did his typical "I'm out of here" routine, which freed me up to revisit the Prydrins for a job well done. What? Danse is a synth? I'm shocked. However, this was a make or break for Danse. If I fumbled these upcoming speech checks, I would never get Danse back as a companion and would forfeit the potential of grabbing his perk. Luckily though, I always keep a couple of great mentats just for this type of occasion. Rocking up to the bunker, I was met with the familiar protectrons out for my head. However, what I wasn't expecting was Danse to be standing at full attention. I'm guessing the feeling of being one wrong move away from death is getting him excited, but Danse, you're gonna need to put that thing away. There are children here. Talking Danse down from his non-existent will to live, we tried to run away into the night, but got stopped by Elder Maxon. He was rightly pissed about us not killing Danse. I mean, it was a direct order after all. To which we called him out on his bullshit, and even Danse reminded him that he was fully cocked and loaded. One wrong step, and he'd blow. Maxon, seeing his hands were tied, had no choice but to allow Danse to live. With the only exception being that if he ever tried to come back to the Brotherhood, he would be shot on sight. Which, to be honest, seems pretty fair, all things considered. With this meeting going far better than I had expected, I tried to use the vertibird to turn in the blind betrayal mission, but it seems that I was also being punished by not being able to fly off into the sunset.
Okay, anyway, hand off. But we're doing alright. We did Liberty Reprimed, which is really good. Blind Betrayal. Now the problem is, the next quest, Tactical Thinking. What the fuck is happening?
I mean, at this point, this is just a shitty amusement park ride, but it costs me one vertibird grenade every time I try it. So I guess I'm walking home then. On the way, I visited the railroad to turn in and drop off some quests. I turned in my quest to Maxon, and then raced all the way back to Sanctuary. And to finish off the session, I spruced up Sanctuary a little bit, and then hit up the Institute to grab any missing completion items I could find, mainly in the form of holotapes and this one magazine. But although this felt good, one thing still had me second guessing things, and that was Imogen Cabot. I tried the quest again to see if anything would hopefully change, but sadly it did not. It wasn't a great showing to X6, who now accompanied me, but I didn't want to settle for this. I wanted to see just how broken this quest was. The marker claimed she was back at Cabot's house, but upon arrival, and with the flex of a first attempt door clip, it was clear that Imogen was no more. Another victim of the Commonwealth who sadly would have to wait until next playthrough to see the light of day, locking off the rest of the Cabot questline, and with it, a few completion pieces. But speaking of seeing the light of day, as we did not stop and we have to continue, it was time for X6 and I to head underground for a bit, all in an effort to boost his affinity. We're off to Vault 88! We cleared out some raiders surrounding the spot, and then ventured in to chat at the Overseer to get this place up and running, which sounded easy considering all we had to do is clear out the creatures down here. I mean, how hard could they be, right?
Oh, wow, we lost the whole fucking stream so far.
Welcome to survival mode, ladies and gentlemen! Returning to the vault with my suit of power armor once again, I wasted no time in tracking down the Overseer to once again clear the vault of baddies. This time we had better success, even if it was finished with nothing more than my fists. With the vault cleared, now came time to finally invite some settlers in to trial run some Vault-Tech prototypes, guaranteed to get our vault up and running or kill all of our dwellers in the process. A gamble I'm more than familiar with. So now seeing our new settlers responding to the broadcast, the only one we're gonna focus on is Clem. Clem is the pinnacle of who you would want in a vault. He doesn't talk back, he's always smiling, and he's always the first to charge into an experiment that could potentially kill him. At least X6 liked that. And this won't be the last time. See, X6 likes it when we pick chaotic or evil options, and using Clem as our personalized guinea pig soothes his soul. But besides the fact that I was filling this vault with generator exhaust instead of using the super power conductor downstairs, I still had more trials for Clem if he was going to stay inside my vault. Now, quick question. How do you make your dwellers forget about their woes and just go along with the flow? Simple. Just spike the local water cooler and they'll soon be reciting Pink Floyd lyrics as if they were once a message from God himself. So off I headed to Hallucinogen to grab some canisters of funny gas, as well as some for my personal stash to create the special grenades. I stocked up a good neighbor at the sound of a herd of pissed off hippies approaching, and returned to Vault 88 only for the entire Roger Waters fan club to jump me on re-entry. After somehow surviving that ambush, I got Clem to serve up his jungle juice to sway the doubting dweller, and when that didn't do the job, I constructed a simple machine to make sure our kind citizens' eyes worked. Just disregard the constant flashing images, they don't really mean anything.
There's nothing sinister going on. You're just imagining things.
I don't buy it, pal. Any of it. At least up in the Commonwealth, everyone's up front about trying to kill you or rip you off. Come on, Clem. Let's leave. These guys are assholes.
But I've got a job now. I'm an I run the eye machine. I can't leave.
Run while you can, Clem.
Okay, so she left us. That's alright though, because we still have Clem, and to reward him for his loyalty, I'm gonna throw him a bone. Here's a slot machine for you, Clem. Oh no! I set it to steal your money instead of max payouts. Clem, I'm so sorry. It's an honest mistake. X6 doesn't like any of these options. I just clicked at random. With the trials complete for Vault 88, I overtook the role as Overseer, to which Clem was over the moon. But as much as I love this little guy, I set up some turrets and promoted him to watch out for himself as I left. Never to return. Hopefully the generator exhaust doesn't get him while I'm gone. I promise, Clem, I'll check back up with you in about a year or so. With the last of my faction lockouts resting on X6's affinity, I started to smash out every little settlement quest while hopping in and out of power armor. I'm not sure why, but he really likes this stuff. He doesn't care about the settlement mission itself, but Benevolent Leader does, which makes these mandatory for the time being. I can't spend the whole playthrough retaking previously owned settlements, now can I? While we were out and about, we might as well grab some more railroad quests. He may not vibe with me doing them, but at least he doesn't even have to attempt to care by me just picking them up. We smashed out an Enclave camp to gain a magazine, scoured through the satellite array Olivia, hoping to find terminals to please my Institute companion's love of hacking, but with hope dwindling due to once again having been virtually everywhere at this point, I decided to head back to Sanctuary and grind Affinity passively through time. Not only will this still level up our friendship, but I've been rightfully slacking in the happiness department. Which means we get juice machines, slot machines, turrets, generators, you name it, I may make it if I feel like it. This place is finally shaping up into the cornerstone that it was always meant to be. With Sanctuary sorted for a while, I decided I would start to tackle more of the Creation Club content, beginning with When Pigs Fly. This is a great way to earn some uniques by just following through the quest and making sure Sugg still lives at the end to score the purchasable weapons, like the nail gun and saw blade launcher. I'll have to do this on another playthrough as well. Suggs here only drops a unique grenade launcher if he happens to die during the end of the quest, and in the unfortunate event that he survives, killing him after the fact doesn't drop the weapon. But hey, we get all but one of the quest-specific weapons, so I can't really complain. With another quest crossed off the list that'll eventually get added into another playthrough, I ventured back to Sanctuary to drop off the goods, and now seemed like a good time to check up on our boy Danse. But I don't know what I was worried about. He had gotten a fresh new suit of Enclave armor, and even shared his feelings with me about not letting Maxon rip his throat out. With him being sent on his way back to the mother base, X6 and I then hit up Saugus Ironworks to get the heavy incinerator. Only to get interrupted by X6, who finally threw in the towel and didn't want to travel with us anymore. What a relief! I was never going to use this weapon anyway, which marks it off forever, but now there was nothing stopping me from actually moving forward with the playthrough. Now if I pissed off the Institute, X6 could turn on me and I wouldn't care! All bets are off now, baby! It's game time! Huh. I guess the Enclave didn't get the memo. Oh well, I'll gladly accept the forced donation of your magazine. Alright, with the end just around the corner, I grabbed another companion to smash out. And that lucky companion is MacCready, everyone's favorite former mayor of Little Lamplight with a lack of spelling abilities. We began in the most tame way possible with backtracking through locations again, mainly looking for notes or holotapes to which I had missed heaps. Like Thicket Excavations and Bedford Station. However, just wandering around the Commonwealth wasn't going to be enough to gain MacCready's perk, and seeing how he likes to steal things, when I came across a rogue Brotherhood knight just asking for trouble, it was time to see just how much stealing he truly liked. Really? He didn't like that? Well, unfortunately, Mufasa, you've been doomed. Well, I got the achievement. And a new set of power armor! I don't understand. You like it now? Seeing how he apparently only likes stealing that doesn't involve pickpocketing, I continued gathering missing pieces while making sure to snatch up owned items any chance that I got. And when the stealing and collection slowed down, I ended up at the Malden Center Metro, to which Glory was already mowing down synths. I forgot I'd even picked up this quest, which only happened last session, but since we're here, we might as well do it! Oh yeah, since we're allied to the Institute, these guys don't even care that we're here. Damn! The game kinda just stops playing when you work with everyone at the same time. With a few synths defeated, MacCready actually gave his first affinity talk, which, considering we were only an hour into traveling with him, this was going crazy fast! We continued to tour the area, grabbing pieces along the way, and eventually arrived just outside of Covenant. This did nothing for us, but we tried to mug this fisherman, which somehow went south. But to be honest, I'm blaming the fisherman here. Now you might ask why, because we obviously are the instigators. However, if he had just moved out of the way instead of just having his pathing fall apart, he could have lived. Especially since MacCready missed something like 90% of all the shots he took. After a few more quests, MacCready and I decided to hunt down some gunners who we used to run with, which to be fair is just alluding to the Great Gunner Purge of 2289. But it got a second talk with MacCready, so I'll take it. We bowled over another Enclave camp and visited a church while hunting down a rogue radio signal, only to get jumped by the most blinding weapon this side of Boston! I never got to mess with the Tesla cannon when the Creation Club items dropped, but god damn! This thing seems way too strong for me to handle. Here you go, MacCready. Put it to good use and try not to give me too many back shots, okay? Turns out while I was touring through the game and collecting key pieces, I overestimated my ability to stay on top of it all, and almost seemed like every session I was merely retracing our steps to find a random note or holotape. Besides stopping off at the Massachusetts State House and stomping out the crusty raiders inside, MacCready and I got our kicks just bullying Brotherhood members that we came across. It doesn't do anything for us, but hey, it's the little things that build relationships between strangers. We then answered the call of the devil and got a super snazzy set of power armor, along with a unique chest piece for shutting off the radio. Alright, MacCready, you could have this too. My armor is much better anyway. We hit up the Wilsons' Automatoy headquarters to steal an oversized pony, borrowed the clothes from someone who clearly didn't need them, all before heading out to Jamaica Plains, and in an attempt to provide the settlers a decent living experience, I accidentally used all of my scrap while filling the settlement with omens of my settlers' future if they don't give me the happiness I require. Rest in peace, oversized giddy-up Buttercup. You will not be remembered. And worse yet, this didn't even go that far in setting up the Benevolent Leader achievement. At least the settlers at Hangman's Alley appreciate the things I do for them. What do you mean? That settlement has food, it has water, it has beds, and it has protection. That is a lot more than I normally give any settlement. Have you seen what happens when we play this game normally? We literally just like make cages, trap people, and shoot them. Like, we don't do anything else. They don't need homes. What are you complaining about? I don't understand. I don't understand. You're coming at this from the wrong angle. Those people are protected. I am the general of the Minutemen. I am their lord and savior. I gave them a home when no one else would. They now have plenty of the same fruit that they can eat over and over and over again. They have beds. Sure, they have to do some like hardcore parkour to get on top of them, but they exist. They have water that comes from some kind of dirty, rusty pump in the ground. They have a machine gun turret that's more likely to shoot them than it is the rest of the enemies. I am saying that they are some of the most well looked after denizens in the entire Commonwealth. And I'm not saying that lightly. Like, are you telling me? Like, they have a cow. Sure, they have to deal with smog from generators. Sure, they have to deal with the cow just kind of pooping everywhere and nowhere to really clean it up. It might be a little overcrowded. Like I said, the beds might be out in the rain, so the sheets and the mattress are soaked through. The rust might give them tetanus, but at the end of the day, it builds character. They are looking forward to a future because, my God, it is probably a lot worse out there than it is in that settlement. So therefore, it is their little bastion of safety, their kingdom, if you will. Sure, they have to build it from the fucking ground up because I'm not doing it, but it's their home and they would have it no other way. Villain arc? What do you mean, villain? I'm the nicest guy in this game. You don't need shit. We need more water. Oh, you have 9 water. That is enough. Don't get greedy. You have a coffee mug. Fuck out of here asking for stuff. You think I'm gonna give it to you? You know, just for that, you're losing this building. You have no roof now. They didn't have a roof to begin with. Since to spy on you, I have provided you with a bastion of safety. Stuck in the fucking geometry. This is great. See, there's not a single problem in this entire settlement. These people, he has so much protection right now. He can't be hurt by anything. He can't even hurt himself. And as long as he stays right there, he's got it. He's guarding the door. There's only one way in. Upon seeing how generous of a settlement overlord I was, McCready finally asked me for help regarding his companion quest. By this point, this made him the fastest companion to level, since most of it had been done passively, and next session we would see just how long it took to get him over and done with in order to smash out as many companions before endgame. Heading over to the MedTech research building, we wasted no time in smashing out the ghouls inside. But when you have a companion wearing X2 power armor wielding a Tesla cannon, I would only hope the ghouls would fall quickly. And upon grabbing our prized magazine, along with some forgettable cure for some disease that we'll never get to see in action, we then headed outside to take down a rogue chef who only had bad intentions, all before stopping a good neighbor to visit Daisy to conclude the quest. Except, there was no companion perk to follow. All of this running around and McCready now decided to play hard to get rid of. Thankfully, this doesn't actually set us back at all because there's still Creation Club content to go through, even if it did take a bit of fumbling around with the radio signal deciding not to help me out in the slightest. But nothing could have prepared me for what was to come. I stopped in the Harbor Master Hotel and was whisked away to Spooky Town. My vision was blurry, trigger was heavy, and my drip game, drowning. After guessing the passcode and cashing in on my high luck and perception, I managed to collect a host of collectibles. And again, I didn't get a chance to do this one yet, but seeing all of the sweet new apparel easily ranks this as one of the best Creation Club DLCs in my opinion. Before heading back to drop off the goods, I did some jetpack parkour to grab a holotape, and then saw that since the Red Rocket Garage was nearing 80% happiness, it would be in my best interest to hyper-focus that settlement for Benevolent Leader. And to do that, I began with cat cages. I can only make one of them for the time being, but these are a huge boost to happiness, and since all it really takes is soft shell mirelurk meat, that shouldn't be too hard to come by. Now, we wait. And what we do, I decided to grant Mama Murphy her throne on top of a house just in front of the gunner cage hallway, now with a second new floor to boot. Returning to Red Rocket, I constructed a house and spruced up the joint with an art gallery so devoid of purpose, it would invoke the settlers to forget about their dramas and ponder the meaning of it all while being distracted further by the arrival of kittens. I also added positive reinforcement statues and crates to store their belongings in, along with some Christmas trees year-round to give them the spirit of giving with the focus on happiness. Moving back to Quest, and with everything else sorted besides finishing the main story and the level grind, I decided to get banished from the Institute while at the same time making sure to grab anything important from this massive body pile I was leaving in my wake. I mean, let's be real here for a second. After the first few people fell, you would think you would stop trying to all funnel into this room, but no! We're the Institute! We know better than the surface dwellers, and that's why you're all dead. With Father's Coat coming with me and telling Desdemona that we got kicked out, she wanted us to follow up with the Minutemen to finish the main story. Only problem is, if I talk to Preston now, this would lock me into finishing the game with them, and as I said, doing the Brotherhood of Steel questline made the most sense first, as this would give us one more unique weapon than the others. Meaning I'd still have to do tradecraft and talk to Liam on another playthrough only to get kicked out yet again, but at least we've knocked out virtually every side quest that they have, so it shouldn't cause too many issues. Alright, McCready, since you're going to be hanging with me for a while, you get to accompany me on one of the biggest shopping sprees this side of the Commonwealth. All before heading home and having to show X6 that he had outlived his purpose and would forever adorn Sanctuary as a reminder that pixels on screen should stay in their lanes. But we don't really care about Sanctuary anyway. Red Rocket has risen to 87% happiness and shows no sign of slowing down. We stopped through more locations, kind of just killing time and clearing out whatever places decided to repopulate, only for McCready to finally give up his perk, along with the doll showing his spelling capabilities. Also, someone tell me how a wooden doll gives you ceramic crafting materials. Who the hell coded this? Racing back to Sanctuary to swap out my companion, I made sure to reset the kitty cage and then attempted to grind some levels. Except why I thought I could take on 2 floors of gunners at level 92 without Jet or Psycho and with the Overseer's Guardian is beyond me. However, when in doubt, use an explosive weapon. Same perks, but far better results. For our next companion, let's get started on Strong, mainly because we've got some killing to do. Up until this point, I had only one settlement remaining to capture, and I had been holding out hope that I'd get a Radio Freedom trigger to take it over, although the Quartermaster upon the Bridwin also had a side quest to overtake a settlement, and lo and behold, it was reserved for Nordhagen Beach, my missing settlement. Now, this doesn't count towards the Minutemen, but I might as well knock it out now to remove it from further playthroughs. We then talked to Kells to grab some progression quests, and by progression, I mean hunting down Virgil and the railroad. But speaking of the railroad, I just wish they put up more of a fight here. Sure, we may be overpowered by this point in the run, but come on guys, at least try to show that you deserve to be here. And by the way, if you're attempting something like this where companions can turn on you, make sure you remove your gear from them before you kill off their faction. Deacon here was carrying completion pieces that I would have lost to time if I didn't recover them from his corpse. Since Desdemona and her crew were no more, I reconfigured Pam for the Brotherhood, and was now shooting up mass fusion. This gave me a few key items on the roof side of things, but this location housed one more secret that I would have to come back for, and that was the freefall legs. Besides that, this mission played out exactly like you would expect it to, and was over and done with faster than the vertibird ride it took to even get here. Like I said, since we're approaching level 100 now, we might be a tad bit overpowered. But considering we're going to be getting every level anyway, there's nothing wrong with getting just a few more drops of XP before heading out again. This was a super quick way to make some cash to fund our next shopping spree around the map, but also pass time allowing Red Rocket to gain its last few bits of happiness. But the real reason for this was to refresh the stores in the off chance that Sturgis who ran the snack bar would have soft-shell Mirelurk meat. Apparently, since I'm so high level, that type of meat had a super low drop chance. Thankfully, I only needed one at a time to make a new kitty, cause you see, I wasn't farming XP or happiness. No, I was farming cats. And after an hour of running back and forth between settlements to farm gunners, I had finally done it and achieved Benevolent Leader. And surprisingly, this was the first time that I had ever even gotten the achievement. And it's not even on my account! Having this pop meant Strong and I could now leave the vision of the settlers. You see, Strong has an unusual appetite, and watching me devour bodies that for some reason have yet to despawn just tickles him green. Next up, Diamond City. With the Institute on full alert after losing its entire administrative staff, this would be a great time to start the In Sheep's Clothing quest. But on the way, I bumped into another traveling level 4 merchant, the Scribe. Seeing this now fucking pains me, but at the time, this sucked because I could have recruited them, except for the fact that I didn't have an armor stall back at base. But seeing how I couldn't get Trader Riley on this playthrough, this just meant I'd have to come back and get him when my random spawns weren't full of Brotherhood of Steel members or Rust Devils. But little did I know this merchant would live on to torment me in future runs, haunting my sleep, and masking it behind the facade of a traveling loner. I see through your disguise, old man, and you will live to regret this day. Before commencing on shooting up Diamond City, we stopped by Vault 81 to buy all the uniques I couldn't last time I was here. And then I went to watch Daddy bleed out for a bit before deciding to actually heal him up. Seeing how we were no longer the top of the food chain here, Strong and I, along with Piper for some reason, all went to deal with McDonough. I did try to talk him down, but it seems the only outcome was the inevitable. At least Strong approved. I tried to hide McDonough away for a quick snack afterwards, but Piper being Piper was able to sense my bad intentions even through walls. This just means I'll have to make it up to her later. But you know who I won't be making anything up to later? Virgil. If the scientists at the Institute got taken out, you're the last thread needing put down. Besides Dr. Lee, of course, she gets a pass due to being from the best Fallout game, and you know I'm right. Since the end times were upon us, the last thing to do was unleash Liberty Prime upon the people of the Commonwealth. But why do it on an empty stomach? And with a lone Brotherhood member seemingly just asking for me to take a bite out of him, how could I resist? Do you think they'll get mad if I eat this? They get mad if you eat that? Since when? You ate their friend? No, but I thought it'd be okay. Alright, lesson learned. Don't eat your comrades in front of the main force. Drag it away first before devouring your meal. And now comes the nature walk. But a stroll through the Commonwealth is nothing without admiring Liberty Prime's abilities to not give a single fuck when throwing mini nukes at point blank range. If only I could channel that same energy when the raid on the Institute happened, because here I am again, thinking I'm invincible, only to catch a rocket to the face. This, however, is a blessing in disguise. See, while Liberty Prime got a head start in heading towards the Institute, this would give me enough time to visit Nordhagen Beach. Now, why, you may be asking? Well, you see, Bethesda doesn't let you kill children, and for good reason, because that's bad. But they don't stop you from creating orphans. I'm pretty sure this will come back to bite me in another playthrough, or a lifetime, seeing how I just gave the kid the Bruce Wayne treatment, but with no one at the settlement, this meant I could finally claim it for myself, marking all settlements as under Minutemen occupation. Now, you might be thinking that after this I just ran to the Institute and just carried on, right? Hell no! I wanted to see if Liberty Prime was actually walking along the bottom of the water, and the results may shock you. This thing is a fraud, along with its entire organization! Now I get why they needed me to do all this running around for them. They can't possibly do it themselves! Hell, they can't even enter the Commonwealth until you open the door for them! But for all of this odd-placed hate towards this faction, nothing would ever top the level of hatred at this decision I just made with this terminal. Don't worry, we'll see the outcome of this very, very soon. The assault on the Institute finished up pretty by the numbers. Except for another first in my playthroughs, I actually allowed baby Sean to come with me due to him carrying the Wazer rifle. and the only way to obtain it is by running junk to him, if he survives this quest. This concluded the main story, and I was given the highest rank I could achieve with the Brotherhood, enough to buy the Sentinel's Plasmacaster. And now with the endgame fully underway, most of our stats were nearing completion, except for some of the niche damage types, which we can definitely fix. We just need to gain some more levels. So now with our destination being Sanctuary, I decided to hit a few spots for a quick snack, all before heading back to finally begin the grind. Except there are still a few things left to collect, and one of those was the freefall legs. I parkoured my way to the top. I mentally prepared for the long jump, and completely botched it. I'll have to come back with more Nuka-Cola because I am not making that jump in this condition. Mark my words. Welcome to the grind! We have 179 levels left to go thanks to the Your Special book and the special bobbleheads I could get. So let's not waste any time, as our grinding consists of emptying today's catch, looting everything, and selling off everything to buy any materials, ammo, or random pieces of junk that Baby Sean wants. All before running to Red Rocket to remove the bodies of the gunners. Heading off to feed my dark cravings only to return, reset the cages, and then do it all over again. Every 3 to 4 days, however, I would run out to Cambridge Polymer Labs to hopefully run across the wandering merchant Smiling Larry. He's got a legendary ripper he sells, but like the scribe and trader Riley, now I have to find them and get lucky that they don't break. Which, considering this is an incredibly low spawn by this point, I'm not exactly holding my breath. At least Strong finally gave up his perks, so now I can grab Nick and begin working on the last major companion quest of the run. Alright, you ready for a slew of bad karma to head our way? Meet Preston, an NPC seemingly locked in a loop of dialogue because I didn't set off the evacuation notice when I blew up the Institute. And this will last until the end of time. Since I'm not using mods and lack the ability to console command, this means that I cannot trade with him, I can't chat about our future, and if I try at all to converse with him, all he repeats is how I killed all of those scientists. Which is insane when you think about it, because the next quest after taking out the Institute, if you follow the Minutemen questline, is to eliminate the Pridwin and the entire Boston chapter of the Brotherhood. But for some reason, not evacuating random scientists knowingly dabbling and creating false life is somehow worse? And now you want me to defend the castle from gunners? Have you lost your fucking mind? Seeing how this would be just one more quest I could knock out, which is kind of pointless seeing how I'll have to do it again later, I did it on the off chance that maybe this would fix Preston. Oh, I see how it is. So now that I helped you, you don't want to talk, huh? I'm projecting here, but this is entirely my fault for leaving him at 3 affinity talks instead of just grinding it out while I had the chance. Well, there's always other playthroughs, I guess. Considering I had turned Sanctuary into an experienced grinder at this point, all I could do was continue to expand the operation and cash in on the profits. If you've seen any of my other all perks videos, this is very similar in the way that you just use the ×3 XP multiplier from Idiot Savant, get it to proc right before opening the cages, and then watch as your levels climb. Although, while I was seeing my dividends pay off, Preston here got sent to the pillory until he decided to say something else than talk about the Institutes. He for some reason gave me a quest to clear up Backstreet Apparel again, but on the way back I saw something that perfectly explained this run. Our foundation was scuffed. But yet somehow, we were still here. With Radio Freedom blaring hopefully to snap Preston out of his funk, I got a quest to retake 10 Pines Bluff once again, which just had us clearing out Breakheart Banks. However, on the way back, Todd decided to reward me for putting up with his whack-ass game. Time for another row of cages. This thing should be able to clear it out no problem, right? Why do you people like this thing? It's fucking terrible! Oh, I get it now. While the grinding commenced, Nick saw how capable I was and finally asked for help with putting his demons to rest. But before heading out, I decided to move Preston over to Abernathy Farm and see if by talking to them about their woes, this would trick Preston into loving me. Except, all I got was the prompt saying he idolized me, and when I tried to talk to him, He only wanted to talk about the Institute. Excuse me for a moment. Hey yo Eddie, I'm gonna need that piece you keep, and I'm taking this holotape too! This marked the end of the companion quests, and with only Nick and Piper left to grind out, this left a major level grind. Especially since at this point nothing could really take us down. So here we are in the future. We just had a healthy injection of XP, and while I was cleaning up the bodies, I noticed something peculiar. Mary Long lay dead in the street. But how? She's essential! She can't die! Well, this just means I'll use her as an example that nobody is off limits. No one is safe. Keep that in mind, Preston. I'm watching you. Now at level 187, Nick Valentine gave up his perk, which freed up Piper to watch me kill thousands of gunners. Although, before we do that, let's force Preston to break the facade he kept up. If only I could get Mama Murphy off this roof! Apparently, Mama Murphy gets camera shy when she gets thrown off a roof. I mean, who wouldn't? So here I am making her a new chair, running around the house, and now seeing that she had found her way home, now came the overdose of the century. Wait a minute, nobody cared? Not a single Minuteman came over to check on her? Preston, what's going on? Fine, Mama Murphy can join the bath with Marcy Long, and instead of grabbing Piper, I'm gonna collect Hancock, who will at least allow me to use chems without pissing anyone off. This means that we can now use great mentats to boost our experience gains. And with the power of the explosive minigun, I could wear Father's lab coat and a fancy hat to boost my intelligence by 3, with another 3 due to the night person perk to add another +3, as long as the Cajuns were open after 6 p.m. and before 6 a.m. Now at level 200 and not much has changed. With the ability to purchase everything I need to fix up cages and resupply ammo, this meant the system was all but automated, while gaining heaps of caps at the same time. However, I needed a break from the grind. It took Hancock for a tour around the Commonwealth to grab some ammo and check random spawn locations, with us actually bumping into Trader Riley again, who still refused to come home with us. She would sell me items while she slept, but past that, nothing. Even if I held her at gunpoint and tried to walk her back to base, she broke free and turned Hancock against me. This vendor is truly not worth the struggle here, especially since she doesn't even sell any unique items. Carry on, Riley. You're not worth the time. This did end up netting me Hancock's perk later on, however, so I guess randomly leaving the house for a while isn't all that bad. Alright, Piper, you're up. Don't disappoint me. Level 219. Only 60 levels to go. It was over. We had finally all the perks we could possibly get during one playthrough, without the game falling apart. And now came the next completion metric, grabbing all of the perfectly preserved pies. Well, it looks like that's also gonna have to happen on another playthrough. What about the freefall legs jump? Okay, I get it. I need more Nuka-Cola, so instead, how about I run around and complete the missing data statistics the game still has? The end is almost here. I grabbed a missing holotape from the Atom Cats, purchased the last few missing unique items from vendors, and had Piper at 3 affinity talks. But something still didn't sit right with me. Where the fuck is my affinity talk, Preston? Thankfully, we have 3 more runs to fix my past mistakes. And without wasting any more time, meet Institute Dan, equipped with a 10 in agility, a 10 in endurance, and a 4 in charisma. Introductions might be neat and all, but we've gotta get a move on. Of course, while taking the time to make sure we grab the Your Special book for the extra point in charisma. This will help when I visit the local chem feed housing weapons of mass destruction, but not right now, as I have to save some homeless history cosplayers and steal their bobblehead. With them getting a place to lay their heads before meeting their inevitable demise, I ran off to 10 Pines Bluff, followed by giving Jared an up-close and personal minigun demonstration. But I still need to grab the bobblehead from here once again due to needing to get all of them for the actual achievement progress. Now with Preston as my companion, hopefully for the last time, I bought the spray and pray and grabbed the intelligence bobblehead before stopping off at Good Neighbor. This is crucial because 2 quests in here have to be done before even moving the main quest along. First up, we need to harass Hancock about a spooky art gallery, and then visit the memory den. You can get Irma here to allow you to revisit the death of your spouse that you only just saw less than an hour ago. Because who doesn't need more main character trauma? With these 2 events knocked out, now I hit up the Cabot house to get this quest line started early in the hopes that it wouldn't crumble under the massive amounts of glue and paper clips that held this game together. Grabbing the serum went about as well as it could have, and here came the actual breaking point. Was Imogene where she needed to be? Thank Todd! We finally have a chance to get the missing magazines and bobbleheads now! And if you think for 1 second that I'm not following through with this quest immediately now that I have the chance, you're out of your mind! However, as the saying goes, it's not a crisis video without something breaking. Jack and I grabbed the bobblehead before we tore through the insane asylum with the longing of quality dad bonding time. So of course when Lorenzo asked me to free him, I jumped at the opportunity, mainly because he had a magazine stashed in his holding cell. Except this is a bad thing, because this kills people. See, Lorenzo makes his way back to the house and proceeds to go ham, killing Deegan and Jack's mom. This naturally pissed off Jack to the point where he didn't want to pony up with the Lorenzo's artifact. Turns out, no one is allowed to die during this part of the quest, meaning I'll need to come back later and retry as I still have an ace up my sleeve to double dip this entire thing. So in an effort to grind a level real quick, I visited the Dunwich Boars to grab the sneak bobblehead, and then returned to make sure Lorenzo could do no harm to anyone inside the house. This granted me Lorenzo's snazzy suit, but also got Jack to dive back into his work to give me a prize worthy of my commitment to this silly family. However, even with Preston along for my shenanigans in one universe, he still hated me in our main timeline. Moving back on to Institute Dan, the next main focus was going to be sourcing the rest of the bobbleheads. And to do so, I'm gonna need a better weapon, which means Pikmin's Gallery is the next logical location. Not only do I get the bobblehead and the weapon, but I also complete Hancock's request, marking off another quest that I'll never need to do ever again. I then snatched up Drinking Buddy to sell back to Rufus so I could actually mark this quest as complete, and now we come back to the bobbleheads. Come on, Nick, I wasn't here for you, but I need that bobblehead so you get lucky today. You think Gunners can stop me getting the bobblehead I need to pretend that I still work out? Sagas put up more of a fight than I'd like to admit due to my low level, but more explosive damage means my spray and pray will do heaps more damage now. And by heaps, I mean a whole 10% more. Wow! With the long neck cannery next on the list, I did some sweet parkour to avoid doing the quest here, and hopefully this would allow me to recruit Trader Riley. Except, she still didn't want anything to do with me. Woman! I have Preston with me who loves taking settlements. Of course I'd have enough settlers and spots for you to hang out. Why won't you work for me? Racing through even more gunners to get to the bobblehead in Vault 75, I then saved Strong and Rex Goodman from Trinity Tower to grab yet another wacky collectible. All before visiting Spectacle Island to boost my luck, putting me on a direct path to some kind of Swedish chef fan club to grab the agility bobblehead. Now I'm shooting up random raiders, and visiting a faction of greasers that played Fallout 3 once and thought Butch was the coolest character ever. And before continuing too far, I made myself even more desensitized to the lack of gunner lives by raiding the Gunner Plaza and Vault 95. With only 2 more bobbleheads left, I was now at a crossroads. If I wanted to smash out any random spawn events, now would be the time to do so, as finishing off Kellogg would open the door to the Brotherhood of Steel, and those guys love to override random spawns. Let's just hope they play ball this time? Moving back over into our first timeline, I wonder if I have the skill to actually get the freefall legs this time. I'm still shit at this game. Right, so moving back onto Timeline 2, and to make sure we don't run into any further complications, I spent the next session running around to gain as many settlements as possible. Not only would this greatly improve Preston's affinity, but this would also accrue settlement population and allow for supply lines. This is a hugely important thing that I normally avoid like the plague, but when trying to lure merchants home, this is the check that needs to be met in order to bring them back. So with my settlement empire looking like this, we should be all clear to gain the scribe or anyone else we run into, except for Trader Riley. She just apparently hates us. Oh, come on, I'm so close, this is ridiculous. Why can't I just do this? Oh my god, I did it! Oh no, it's over there, isn't it? No! In our current timeline, now came random spawn farming, and the hotspot definitely seems to be outside the Cambridge Polymer Labs. I ran into Smiling Larry, but lacked the ability to recruit him, and this hurt. I needed this merchant for his legendary Ripper that he sold, but since he only sold it while being at a weapons shop, this meant that I'd have to get lucky and find him again since I happened to lack the necessary rank 3 shop. Meaning to even get a hold of these guys, you needed to be at least level 20 with level 3 shops available. I will not be caught off guard again. Although, besides the fact that I would never see this merchant again, and the fact that the random spawn seemed to break, meant I was now 2 playthroughs down while still missing 4 uniques between the 2 vendors. I returned to Longneck's Cannery to try and swindle Trader Riley, but it's settled, this woman hates me, no matter what form I take. So I hit up Vault 81 to follow Austin around so I could check this quest off, and then saved Austin from a curious encounter with a mole rat, grabbing the medicine bobblehead in the process. With the random spawn seemingly still broken, I decided that before going too much further on playthrough 2, I switched back to playthrough 1 and crafted up some Ultra Jets. I'm getting these stupid legs one way or another! First fucking try? All it took was Ultra Jet not having an ailment that hindered my action points. Who would have guessed? Every time I play this game, I'm reminded that Todd Howard thought of these things for players like me. Thank you, Todd! I take back the glue and paper clips comment. You're definitely using duct tape and pins instead. This put a huge kick in my step, so much that I now headed out into the Commonwealth on playthrough 1 to check for random spawns. And sadly, with the Institute being blown up and all, I have a feeling this spawn might be compromised. But you know what spawn isn't? 10 Pines motherfucking Bluff! Praise the Howard! This was a blessing, so much so that I actually walked Smiling Larry home and bought the Reckoning immediately. Now Piper and I could head back out again hunting for the scribe while still gaining passive affinity. Timeline 1 is shaping up nicely. We need 1 more merchant, 1 more companion perk, and with everything else sorted, all I have to lose is time. Speaking of time, let's not waste too much of it summarizing the next session, because all you need to know is I spent 2 hours looking for this bastard, and bullying what seemed to be like a million super mutant warlords with this new Ripper I had. But we ended up romancing Piper over a moment of glowing dog killing. Look, even they approve! Another member of the harem. But without the merchant in tow, this practically doomed this character to walk the road forever in search of those 3 uniques. So returning to Timeline 2, we did the typical plot progression. Kellogg caught a mini newt to the face, I grabbed the lost bobblehead to pop the achievement, we visited Virgil, killed the courser, and was now inside the Institute. We grabbed the serum for Virgil, tried Trader Riley again only to get rejected, smashed out Libertalia, completed Bunker Hill, got promoted to the CEO in waiting, and then we started plugging the leak. With that summary, now I can slow down a bit to explain this quest. I was tasked with finding the mole inside the Institute who was helping Synth escape, which if you played the Railroad questline before, you'll know that this all stems from a Mr. Liam Benet. But to find this info out, if you, like me, just shoot up the Railroad HQ at the earliest convenience, you'll need to do some light reading before calling out Liam in front of his makeshift mom. She doesn't like this though, so when I run into her later on, she holds me at gunpoint unless I help her son get out of this scot-free. like framing the current supervisor to get exiled from his position. Where he goes after this, I have no idea, but seeing how the Institute hates moles and traitors, I can only assume it's not good. Just make sure to speech check Liam before finishing this quest out, or you'll lose out on his glasses, which are pretty dope by the way, and an easy inclusion for any intelligence build with a charisma buff to boost. Seeing how there's really only 3 more quests before we finish out the Institute storyline, it only made sense to sort out some of the miscellaneous quests before moving forward. Like hunting down Jack Cabot to give me my prize! Except, he seemed more interested in wandering with no real goal rather than talking to me. Even with Preston and I trying to body block him, Jack just wanted nothing to do with us, meaning once again, this quest had locked up on me. And the worst part is this is at the very end of the quest. I couldn't even finish it. Fine, I guess I'll redo When Pigs Fly and make sure that Suggs meets his untimely demise. With the Flacker in my possession, I now never even have to look at Creation Club content again. With the thought of knocking out quests with multiple rewards, I also completed my second go around the Vault 88, pretty much just picking every good option to please Preston. With enough side quests down, the beginning of the end could begin, and no matter how many times this game tries to stop me, I am catapulting the Institute into the driver's seat to be the dominant force in the Commonwealth. We saved scientists trapped in the closet, rummaged through an introvert's trailer to turn his knobs and prime his tubes, listened to an old man take credit for his underling success, and then visited Virgil before removing the railroad. Now I can leave Virgil the fuck alone unless absolutely necessary in the next 2 playthroughs. Never say I don't do anything nice for these people. You remember how we took out the railroad with the Brotherhood, right? Now we get to do the same with the Institute! Isn't this great? And to make it better, now we're wiping out the Brotherhood of Steel. However, we still need to be careful here. Maxim will drop his clothes and the unique weapon during this quest, and to avoid another Institute playthrough due to these things dematerializing from the space-time continuum, I'm focusing him down the moment he lands. That is if he doesn't kill me first! Now dripped out with the spoils of an entire playthrough and watching one of the coolest set pieces this game has to offer, I returned home to watch my son die, before returning to something far more important. The hunt for that missing scribe! Except, we didn't do very good. Another hour down, who knows how many more to go. Timeline 3 can now commence. Meet Lucy Cabusi, the railroad member that wants nothing more than to save the Commonwealth. One axe swing at a time. Who says comic book enthusiasts can't pose a threat to others' well-being with more than just their smell? There isn't much to discuss here though. We've done all of the railroad missions in our first timeline, so all of these quests will have been seen at one point or another. However, one thing that will be relevant later on is that we lucked out and got the red rocket near Sanctuary to be our Mercer safe house. Lucy Cabusi may be revisiting past completed quests, but the scars she leaves across the Commonwealth will forever linger. Much like this stupid Cabot questline that I'm doing again for the 3rd time. Making sure to kill Lorenzo when I first come in contact with him. Please, Todd, please don't make me do this again. To kill some time while waiting for Jack to build Lorenzo's artifact, I tormented the people of Diamond City. But while we're trying to come up with new ways to spice up mundane events, I came across one of the coolest, smallest, pointless discoveries I've ever seen when leaving Fort Hagen.
Yeah, cold tea is delicious. Yeah, Kitten knows exactly what's up.
It's fucking southern!
Did you guys just see that vertebrate, like, fly off into nothing?
You're both as ninky knock as each other.
That one did it too!
My first attempt to taste pumpkin pie was at Denny's, and it was the most atrocious, yuckiest pie. But then Chris said that it's because it's at Denny's, so I should trust it. There you go, little backstory. Ooh!
It does! It just fades off in the distance! I told you it doesn't!
I didn't say I didn't believe you!
It doesn't! Denny's for pumpkin pie! No, yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I was like, why would you do that?
It's fucking disgusting. Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Silliness aside and further into the story, I then built the teleporter at the Red Rocket Garage, revisited Liam, smashed out the Cambridge Polymer Labs, And finally, it completed the Cabot questline in its entirety. Fuck you, Jack. I'm out of here. Now I can actually progress the railroad questline. And we start by murdering tunnel guards and smuggling in weapons. And redoing the entire Institute questline, because it's not like I needed to do it in its own playthrough or anything. Libertalia, Bunker Hill, got a promotion, did mass fusion, saved a trapped scientist, dropped a mixtape, hooked up a reactor, and now the railroad decided now that it was time to intervene. Don't you think this is a little late though? I literally helped them accomplish 75% of their goals, but yet you decided to make a move only when you were next on the chopping block? They have super synths now and the ability to overtake Liberty Prime. I may be a bad woman with an axe, but I am not enough to stop them. Face it, Desdemona, you've doomed the faction if the sole survivor wasn't a god incarnate. The Brotherhood also thought this didn't make sense, and they tried to do me a solid in removing the railroad from all of our future games. However, I still need the achievements, which means whether I agree or not, I'm sworn to help these bozos accomplish their goals. And one of those is raiding the Cambridge police station. But as it stands, the Brotherhood posed no threat against Lucy Caboose, meaning desperate times called for desperate measures.
Oh, don't worry, Deacon. They're definitely... Oh, he's trying to kill us. What? No! 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 No!
Vertibird pilots seem to be the only real threat at this point, so naturally, we needed to remove the source of pain to continue the healing.
I'm even gonna do the explosives in reverse order.
Leave no survivors.
There is a reason for that one.
What the fuck was that? Now comes the end of another playthrough that looks the same as 3 other factions. Only difference is that now I didn't have to save Baby Sean, and I watched as my child support claims went up in smoke. We now had 3 out of 4 playthroughs down, and also had gained all the achievements. The only thing left to do was get lucky and find the scribe, complete the Minutemen questline, and clean up anything else that still needed got. The end was in sight, just a little more to go. And here comes the final run, and we plan on going fast. So fast, since we're just doing the Minutemen questline, that we could skip all the way to meeting the railroad. Normally, I'd gloss over them since we've seen them more than enough for a lifetime of playthroughs, but we still need to knock out Tradecraft with them and build the teleporter with them. This is only due to the fact that we still need to knock out the Burning Cover quest, which can only be done if the railroad gets you to talk to the Minutemen after being kicked out of the Institute. With this quest down, now we can proceed as normal and take the fight to the Institute. First by defending the castle, grabbing a holotape from the sub-levels that can only be acquired during the Minutemen ending, and by adding another crater to the already blemished surface of the Commonwealth. But why stop there? We also asserted our dominance by also removing the Brotherhood of Steel with our far superior anti-air weaponry. The run had concluded, in record pace mind you, and this marked the end of every quest as we knew it, save one. The home stretch was nigh. Since our next goal of getting pies would need to happen sooner or later, I took Preston on a walk to gain experience and affinity, which thankfully gained his perk crossing off every companion perk. Still needing levels and the scribe, I tried to spawn him in at his favorite hangout spot with the Institute still intact. But alas, this was another hour of nothing but failure. Putting the balding old man on the back burner where he belongs, We strictly focused on gaining levels, by mainly just purging the Commonwealth and completing the last Institute quests like building a better crop, which has you gaslighting settlers and using experimental seeds as part of an Institute project to further food growth on the surface. Now you could be asking yourself, Chris, why do you still need levels when you already have every perk on your first character? Well, this is due to the fact that at level 37, I can get rank 3 of Party Boy to greatly increase my chances of getting the perfectly preserved pies. I go over this in more detail in this video where we get every single pie in the game, but it all boils down to our luck stat. Any luck increasing gear like the DB Varsity Jacket, and then downing every single unique stat boosting alcohol we can find, with each separately named one increasing our luck by 3, and this stacks. And although you may not get the pies on your first attempt, this is still the fastest way to get these delicious treats without causing you to rip out your hair or die from old age. But while collecting pies are cool and all, I'm beginning to think I'm never going to see this scribe again. Another hour and a half gone, with nothing to report. With one final trek across the Commonwealth on our main timeline, I kept an eye out for the scribe, but alas, I made it all the way to the Pridwin, even going out of my way to trigger more random spawns, and still came up empty. While at the Pridwin, I scooped up the last few holotapes, stole Kells' hat, and tried to kill Maxon, only to fail due to his massive plot armor here. I ran back making sure to go out of my way once again to trigger random spawns, but still nothing. And these unfortunately are acceptable losses, as we've nearly spent 10 hours looking for this random spawn merchant by himself. And to further drive home how elusive this character is, in my 1500 hours of playing this game, both on survival and not, I have only seen this character once. I will continue to hunt for him in my free time, but I do feel like we've come to an end. We've acquired everything there is to gain within reason. We don't need to gather power armors, I can literally steal them from the Brotherhood steel members around the world along with the power cores. We have the biggest attachments for our most used weapons, and between the level 4 merchants that I could acquire, any junk piece or outfit that isn't unique is sitting at our shops. With our playtime reaching over 170 hours across 4 playthroughs, this is the most setup you can have for any modern DLC going forward. And to be honest, even if you win it with nothing more than your fists, and even without gear at all, you would still cause massive chaos wherever you went. With this video coming to an end, I want to give a massive shout out to the patrons, the channel members, and all who attended the 30+ streams we did. You all kept me sane while this game literally dissolved in front of us, and the amount of hijinks on stream we came across wouldn't have been the same without you guys. To you, the viewer, thank you so much for watching up to this point, but make sure to stretch your legs if you've been sitting down. This video has been going on for quite a while now. I do have plans to visit the DLC and continue these playthroughs, but I think for now and the next few videos going forward, we'll be going back to a somewhat normal schedule, being one video every 2 weeks. It is inevitable I missed something, so please in the comments tell me if you saw or noticed something that I didn't get. And with that being said, I have been Chris from Crisis Gaming, and I will see you on the next one.